And we are live with another episode of the Andor Aftershow. It is season 2, the final season of Andor. We're here to talk about episodes 7 to 9 on this show. The show dropped earlier on Tuesday, and we're here on a Saturday, a couple days after we've let it soak in. We got a lot to talk about. I'm your host, Dimithri Perera, and we got
your co-host, Sara, aka Ms. Marauder.
And we are here with two amazing guests. Not only with an amazing co-host, but we got two amazing guests as well. First of all, we haven't had her on the show maybe since Andor season 1. It might have been that long, but we got Jen Markham. Jen, how's it going?
Hi, it's going great. It's such an honor to be here with so many amazing Star Wars creators and people who are so knowledgeable. I'm excited to talk about it, but I'm excited to also hear what you guys have to say about it. Most of all,
this show, we had you on season 1 of this show, and it's been a couple years. Have you been dying for this season?
Oh yeah. Oh, this is there's this show and then there's everything else Star Wars makes. You know what I mean? In terms of, but that's obviously my opinion and my taste. I have a friend who put it really beautifully. This was the Star Wars that grew up with people that love Star Wars as a kid. So if you're looking for something that makes you feel like a kid again, this might not be that show. But if you're looking for something that the Star Wars that grew up with you, it's been just fantastic. It's crazy. It's almost over. It's just a few days away.
I'm so sad about all that. I don't know how I'm gonna deal with it all, but I will. Sara,
I know I will cry. That's how I will.
Yeah,
this might be the first time. As a disclaimer, I talk a lot about crying. I don't think I've ever cried on the podcast before, but I might cry today. I cried multiple times watching these episodes, so I might cry talking about something. I'm always metaphorically crying. I'm always, but
I cry a lot when watching movies and TV. I don't know if I've actually cried on a podcast before, but I've almost made myself cry many times talking about things. You want to talk about Toy Story 3? I will cry.
Listen, that scene in the incinerator, that was emotional torture. They knew what they were doing.
That scene didn't get me because I was like, what are they going to do? Burn them all alive? What is this, Rogue One? But the scene that did get me is at the end when he's passing his toys along to the next one. I cried.
And she reaches for Woody and he pulls Woody back.
That made me cry.
Yeah. Who is that other voice? If you're listening to the podcast, wherever you get your podcast from, all the major podcast platforms. No, you don't. You've been on the show enough. Do you need an introduction? I don't know. If you're watching the live stream, you can obviously see that it's Darth Choco also here with us. Choco, how's it going?
I'm doing great. This man, Andor is a cut above the rest, and it's going to be hard. It's gonna be hard. After these 3 episodes, I was like Ciro lying on the bed. That's where I was at. It's one of those things that you're just gonna sit and think about forever, really.
Yeah. I mean, here's a question for everybody involved. What episode did you fall in love with Andor? Season 1, let's just say, right? I assume it didn't take you to season 2 to fall in love with Andor, but maybe it did. Who knows? Do you guys know what episode really hooked you on Andor?
On the show itself, or on the character of Cassian Andor?
No, on the show. Because obviously, Cassian Andor in Rogue One, sure, but the show of Andor.
I mean, I do have an answer.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I was fortunate enough to go to the premiere for season 1 in Hollywood, which they showed the first 3 episodes. And so, I mean, it's episode 3 when he's walking and then the drums pick up and you're like, and I'm a drummer myself, and that's not something you hear in Star Wars. And he's just walking, and listen, guys only want one thing, and it's a long coat that's like a duster, and you look badass, and you're walking. That's what we want. That scene hooked.
Okay.
We, just for the record, we all want a duster, and I know that Jen agrees with me because Jen, I just made a Jod Na wood coat, and so
yes,
that
Jod
coat
Uprising.
it's
Half this
switchy.
podcast. Yeah, totally.
I felt good in that coat. So
Yeah.
we all want a coat.
I too was at the same event as Choco, actually. We were there at the same time. And I remember the scene with Luthen and Cassian in like the bricks with the chains and all that stuff, that sort of face off. That stuck with me. Though I do think now that I'm saying it out loud, didn't they show, remember they did put Rogue One back in IMAX that summer? Anyone remember? Anyway, they did. And I think the hook was go see Rogue One in IMAX and stick around for a special scene from Andor. And that was the scene they showed, just the scene about the Imperial Starpath unit with that face off. So I just can't remember if that was before the show premiered or after. I feel like it was, I'm not really sure of the chronology, but I remember seeing that also when I went to see Rogue One again in IMAX with that summer of 22, 23. Anyway, it was that scene.
I wish I rewatched it in IMAX.
Wow.
I think I watched it originally in IMAX, but
it was cool. I remember, and I know this is not about Rogue One, but I remember noticing things as you always do when you see something on the big screen. Like I just remember the first scene also, like when Krennic goes to Mustafar to meet with Vader, like that huge shadow he casts Vader, on the wall. I had never noticed it. I mean, it looked like a painting. The whole movie looks like a series of paintings. But anyway, back to Andor.
I just gotta shout out Jen really quick because she's one of the reasons that I love Rogue One now. When I first saw the movie, it was actually pretty low on my list, and it was after talking to people and hearing people talk about it, and then rewatching it through the eyes of the things they loved, that really changed how I felt about it, and it just kept climbing. So, yeah, definitely shout out to Jen. There's
Oh,
people.
I'm honored. I mean, I feel like you are the king of the lore and know everything there is to ever know about Star Wars, and to say that I've ever shaped any of your opinions is a huge honor.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I loved Rogue One when I saw it because it wasn't afraid of, killing off their people. Though I didn't think that they were going to kill everybody off. Sarah and I talked about in previous episodes. I didn't think that, but then they did, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna cry now. So seeing this prequel show pop up, I think I liked it on episode 3 of season 1 because it finishes the arc, and I'm like, okay, episodes 1 and 2 were build up. Episode 4, I think, sold me. Like when they talked, like it went to the heist, and I love me a heist. And they talk about the manifesto and like that whole thing, like what's his name, Nemec's manifesto and all that. I was like, oh, this is real stuff. So I've been dying for season 2 to come back, and now it's back, and now it's almost over. So wonderful, bittersweet. I mean, let's.
Also, Brasso hitting an Imperial with Marva's brick. That was a very special moment as well.
I have the 3D file to make his brick, and I haven't done it yet, so I'm gonna have to do it. I'll do it. I'll start it today. I'll start running it.
For like his death, like somebody.
No, it's a brick. It's
brick.
Marva's brick, and I think the back of it is. I think it says Brasso's. I think it might be bitch beater brick or something like that. It's got some kind of like quippy thing on the back of it.
Yeah, I thought like the idea that like, does Brasso get a brick? Right?
No, because you need they put
need
their
the body
remains in the brick. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And
so you could have a brick, but it wouldn't be a true brick.
oh, what a death. So let's talk about what a death. A lot happens in episodes 7, 8, and 9. Do you guys have first thoughts? How do you start? How do you start talking about these episodes?
I don't know. Is like holy shit a first thought? I feel like that's it's like obvious. It's so obvious that episode 8 is like the standout, right? But
yeah,
on rewatching it and taking obscene notes, it really can't happen without the buildup of episode 7 and then the payoff right in episode 9. Like you have to have that. Like I was kind of shocked that episode 8, like it opens with like Cassian waking up in the hotel and getting his gun ready, like his blaster ready. Like it immediately goes in. And then it opens with like the next day the Senate is responding. So it barrels one into the. That being said, I could have waited a week in between the 3 episodes to talk about it, because there is a lot that happens. I think that episode 7 is just like everybody knows when they look at the, you know, the thumbnails, everyone knows the Gorman massacre is going to happen in 8. So I think 7 can feel kind of like, okay, we have to get to the big thing that's going to happen. And then episode 9, of course, we know it's going to be the speech. So it's like the thumbnails kind of give it away. So it makes us feel like, okay, episode 7 is not as important, but I think there's a lot of important stuff in there too.
I think they also play with expectations.
7,
oh, what?
I mean, episode 7 on it, there's still a lot of meat there in the episode. I mean, overall, like the whole, this show is a masterclass in building tension, and this one just had that massive amounts of tension from like the last quarter of episode 7 all the way through the end, where you're on the edge of your seat. But yeah, I mean, are we just jumping into each episode? Do you want us to do a whole thing?
I mean, we could start off with episode. We could start off with episode 7. I mean, Sara has the whole, all the notes and everything. Sara, you want to take it? You want to lead us down this timeline?
I mean, I've got kind of the plot summary, so you can look at what you want to talk about. So we start on Yavin. We kind of see how much the rebellion has evolved in a year. They're organizing themselves. We once again don't get to see Bix and Cassian have sex because Will comes in. But once again, like, this is the second time, and for as, you know, down bad as I am for them, this is amazing that this is the second time the show has made me say, like, that was actually probably more intimate than a sex scene, right? When, like, I can't believe I'm about to say I don't need to see it, but I don't really need to see it. Yeah, the hand in the earlier episode, and then them in this one, like her like massaging him, and like the intimacy of it is crazy. Willman comes back, wants to know if Luthen can count on Cassian. We kind of see how bad things have gotten on Gorman, and then we hear from Partagast that they're going to go ahead and start the mining on Gorman. His quote is, "Bad luck for Gorman." I'm sorry, no, it's bad luck Gorman.
Bad luck Gorman, yeah.
Crazy. We find out that Mon Mothma's driver's compromised. The senator from Gorman comes and apologizes to her, and is like, I wish I could turn back time. We got the Force healer stuff. Cyril is starting to crash out. Bix and Cassian kind of argue about the Force healing stuff, and then Cass and Willman go to Gorman, and Vel comes to see Bix.
I'll start. With something I actually don't love. Yeah. I don't love the magic messenger Cassian. I don't love that. Because here's the thing. This is why I'm also Team Ray Nobody. Is that the great lesson should be, you don't need to be from a magic family or have any magic in you anywhere to make a big difference in, like, when it counts. You know what I mean? And that's what all these people were. You know, maybe a lucky kyber crystal, I'll let that slide. But to say that, oh, magic messenger, I'm like, I didn't love it.
So Jen, do you not like the theory that Bix is pregnant and will be giving birth to Poe Dameron?
No, because Poe Dameron doesn't get born until after Return of the Jedi. That's why would she be pregnant?
You're just throwing out a dumb thing, right, Sarah?
No, people are saying that. And people in the comments are like, nope, he's born after the Battle of Yavin, and also he canonically has parents. And they're like, they decanonize stuff all the time.
No, his mom is like the super badass pilot. I can't think of her name. Like that's everyone's just crazy.
And then Dedra is pregnant with Cyril's son, and that's going to be Hux. These are real things I've seen real people say on the internet.
So can I point out something that I find really funny? And it, like, growing up, I always thought, like, what's like a sequel to like before Star Wars had sequels or whatever. It's like the son of Luke Skywalker, like, grows up, and then Luke turns evil, and it's just this thing again. It's like, then, like, he fights against his father, and then I'm sure there's, like, Han has a kid, and he's like a smart, like, I don't know if you guys saw the new Naked Gun trailer.
Yeah.
For the Liam Neeson is doing a new Naked Gun, but they have a moment in the trailer where Liam Neeson is talking to a picture of his dad, which is Leslie Nielsen. and like because he's Frank Drebin Jr. And then it goes down the line that his partner is the son of the partner of Leslie Nielsen's partner, and he's also a junior. And it just goes down the line to like O.J. Simpson on the picture, and his son is the junior, and he's like, no. But the point being is like everybody is, it's the same thing over again, except everybody's juniors. I feel like that's sometimes what fandom just wants. Again,
it's such narrow thinking to me. Obviously, if fans get excited by doing that and that makes them happy, I don't want to yuck on anyone's yum. But I think there's plenty of those stories in Star Wars already of the great royal heritage and the magic people and the chosen one and all of that. This is so not that story. So to have that little touch of thing, I get story-wise later, not to jump ahead, why they did it, because it's for Bix to say, actually, I need to step out kind of thing. But I still don't love it. I still don't. Why?
I wonder because
I
I liked it, but I think I'm viewing it a different way because I didn't view it magic. I feel like if you're like magic messenger, I'm like, yeah, that doesn't track. But for me, maybe it would have been better if it was delivered by someone else other than like hippie force lady. Because I think the idea of like you have someplace you need to be, that made me cry because I was like, he needs to be on Scarif. But this idea of him as the messenger, he's like a messenger and a witness to so many things, right? Nemec's manifesto, he got and passed it on. Marva's hollow message at her funeral, he passed it on. He's the witness to what happens on Gorman. He spreads about that. And then he takes rebellions are built on hope and gives that to Jin, who gives that to everyone else who doesn't really listen, but that's okay. It's a good line for the trailer, right? And then the Death Star plans, right, to Leia, who they ask what she brought and she says hope, right? So this idea that Cassian is going bringing this stuff that he learned along the way. But I do think I do agree with you, Jen, that like putting the force in it makes it woo instead of just like, dang, like, yeah, like he is going from place to place and bringing these things with him that are gonna, like the spark to bring down the Empire, right? Like this idea that he is a messenger that's bringing all this stuff with him. But yeah, when you add the kind of woo-woo of the force, then you get the weird kind of like Bix really believes in the force, and then it's kind of like if you're skeptical about the force, you're like, okay, so his girlfriend bought into religion and then left him. Like, you can boil it down kind of cynically, but yeah, I like the concept of him.
And now Bix is selling crystals on
no, she's selling kyber crystals on Jeddah.
Not on Jeddah.
Personally, I loved it. So the way I came down on it or come down on it is there's something that George said was, you have a destiny, but you can choose to follow it, right? So it's both kind of the cosmic force trying to push you in a direction, but you can also choose not to do it, or you can choose to do it. Keen example of this is Anakin Skywalker, right? That moment in Revenge of the Sith where he's in the Senate room, Mace Windu has Palpatine dead to rights. That was Anakin's moment to fulfill the prophecy, right? Mace Windu says the Sith will never return to rule. Palpatine says you must choose, and Anakin chose Palpatine in that moment, fully aware of the prophecy that he can fulfill it right now, right? He chose not to do it. Later, he chooses to do it, right? It's still a choice. It's not like predetermined. And if you don't do it, then Cosmic Force will try to push someone else to do it. But like someone has to do something. And I look at this the same way with what's his name? Donnie Yen's character.
Who?
Chirrut
Imwe.
Yeah.
Right. They're all pinned down. The one trooper like peeks out, shot in the chest, dead. Chirrut is able to starts chanting, and he's able to make it out to the platform to hit the thing. And as soon as he does it, that's when he starts getting shot. It's like he was being helped in that moment. And so I like the idea that, Cassian does have this destiny, but he has to choose, and it's hard and it sucks, and he's getting his ass kicked, left and right. And He even in episode 9, he's like, I'm done. And then Clea lays into him. Oh, you're done? Is it hard? And I love Clea. But
Yeah.
like that's I liked it because it kind of gave us that it was a way for them to acknowledge the Force without making this be about the Force and have it be super present throughout everything. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. When I was watching this episode, at first I didn't like it. I was like, this is unnecessary. I don't know how I feel about this. Or no, I did know how. I was very negative about it. And then as I was like sitting on it, and I like the idea that like it's not destiny, but it's more like if he continues the way he's continuing doing good, then it's leading towards something good. But it's less about destiny and it's more about just like the faith of like putting your faith in like the rebellion and mankind and like doing the right thing. And then people who are actively doing bad, they're destined for something bad. And then the people who don't do anything at all, they just kind of get swept up in the gravity of other people, as we see with Cyril.
I like Cassian's reaction to it of being like angry at Bix and like, why would you do that? And the how skeptical he is, because when she says something like, if it was all a lie, they wouldn't keep doing it. And he was like, what does it even mean? I'm like, yeah, because I don't like psychic stuff. And like if I was dating someone and they brought me to a psychic and then the psychic said something true, I would absolutely be mad. I would like definitely react with anger at that point and like frustration. So I understand where they're both coming from. And I like that Bix later in episode 9 says she's been thinking about it for a while, right? And then she has the conversation with Vel where Vel is like, we need Cassian, he's a leader now, like, and we need leaders. Sure. So that it wasn't just like Bix heard one woo-woo Force lady say he's a messenger and now she's gonna leave, right? So I like that they kind of built in, it's not just this one thing. This maybe is just kind of the tipping point for Bix.
I guess for me also is that Cassian is not a great guy. I mean, he murders unarmed people all the time. So to have that he's this magic person and I think that's really interesting. I'm not saying Cassian should be better. I think though you need every type of person in a rebellion. You need Jedi, you need generals, you need senators. You need some people to do some dirty shit. Sorry, I don't remember, but
No, we could say whatever we want.
Okay, but that's kind of where I thought he was. Like he has to do some not cool, okay things. So then to pair that with this touch of chosen one, I'm like, I've seen that story. I don't know. I felt like this was more a story about a different piece of the puzzle that is required for rebellion, other than the chosen people. But
yeah, I understand that whole concept of like there is a lot of like we're treating Cass like, or maybe we're putting Cassian up a little bit too high. Like he's obviously a really important part, but to be like, if Cassian is not there to lead stuff, then everything falls apart. I don't think the rebellion is fragile, but I don't think it's that fragile, right? Like that. I think we could find but that's the whole thing is it is dominoes, right? It is one little thing that could change everything. So maybe it could, but yeah, kind of putting him up. I don't like the chosen one. People are other things going on there.
Like she did. I don't know whether she was explicitly saying the chosen one. What'd you say?
Right. That's my phrase. But the thing like, oh, there's something like something magic about you that makes you magic. And I just find that so antithetical to what I think is the point of the show, is that the building and arming of a rebellion is dirty, nasty business. Yeah. It is not all like white knights and people in white dresses. Like it is, some bad things have to happen for good to prevail. I think that is kind of the whole idea of the show. So to be this like that's where I got the disconnect, really, that like, oh, he's like the guy, and of course we know it's the guy, but there's lots of guys, and this isn't the one to maybe go magic.
Yeah. So. I just view it as a fortune cookie in a way. It was just like, good things will come, like sort of fortune cookie. Like keep doing what you're doing. Like you will be great. thumbs up. Like, and then it's like, okay,
go
continue.
You will meet new and interesting
Yeah.
people.
It also, they weren't on just like a street corner. Like, they're literally in the rebellion. So I feel like she could just go to everybody and be like, you're important, you know? Thank you for
anyone
your
who's
service.
thinking of leaving. Yes, if you're leaving, no, we
Right.
need your magic. Yeah, I like that.
That's hilarious.
She said something along the lines of like, you know, they're going to come anyway, right? They already believe, so they're going to keep coming whether it's true or not. Like sometimes things happen, right? She admits that like it's not always. Sometimes nothing happens. But yeah, it's just like a horoscope, right? Make it vague enough so that you can be like, oh yeah, that's so Pisces.
Yeah. I mean, we know it's true because we know Rogue One's end, right? But like,
and also he was healed.
Yeah, so she does have the Force.
But I just like it as an acknowledgement, as this is like the Force is part of this universe, right? That is going to play a role. It's out there, but you know, we're still focusing here on this part of the fight.
Yeah,
I totally agree with that. Just the existence of Force healers. I was like, oh, that's great. That would be a thing. You know, people would be. Not everyone who ever knew that the Force was around is dead, so they would remember, and it would still be like a thing that was going on. So I thought that was really cool.
It's also just really basic healing. It's not like Deadpool level healing.
Yeah, it's like Force physical therapy.
You know?
Yeah,
it's just like
Force kinesiology.
Yeah. So yeah, what?
I have one thing that's not at all related that I don't know if you guys caught it. Sorry, that's so like, I don't know if you guys caught it.
Yeah, right.
But there's a moment. Yeah, Choco. I don't know if you, the Star Wars lore guy, caught this, but there's a moment when they're talking to Will, when Will is essentially making the argument that like all we do here is get ready, and Luthen's actually doing stuff, and then we hear the line from the trailer, and the line is cut up in the trailer. In the trailer, we hear Cassian say, "We're in a war. Do you want to fight or do you want to win?" And for me, that when you cut it that way, that makes it sound like, hey, we have to do stuff that you're not proud of. We're in a war. Do you want to fight or do you want to win? But then here he's saying it to Will. He says, do you want to fight or do you want to win? Going it alone doesn't cut it anymore. So this idea of you just want to fight, right? You just want to go get Dedra for revenge. You just want to do little fights, but we're at war and we have to win the war. It's like such a different line when he says it that way. And this idea that Cassian is now okay. I mean, of course he's going to change his mind after Gorman, right? But he's like, this is the rebellion. It's a capital R now, right? Like we got to band together. And of course that's what he's going to do in Rogue One, right? Is he's trying to get Jen into it. And this idea that they misrepresented the line so aggressively in the trailer that it was a happy surprise to see it be like Cassian saying it to get someone into the rebellion, as opposed to saying it to be like, hey, we got to murder some people. We're in a war.
It's more like, look at the big picture here.
Interesting observation.
Yeah.
This is
if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Yeah.
Did you just come up with that, Choco? No, I know it's a quote. But where's it from, actually? I don't even know.
I mean, I know it as an African proverb, but I'm sure other people have versions of it.
Dominic Toretto from Fast and Furious, but continue.
something family. No, I want to say that this episode also had the worst, the least passionate and affectionate kiss I've ever seen. Where I was like, Dedra, why is your face like that? Like,
it's so weird.
It looked painful. It looked like I don't know, like a mama bird feeding her young or something. It was weird.
It was forceful. It was almost trying to persuade him without passion, just robotic.
Yeah.
Like a KX.
It was it was physically impactful, not emotionally impactful.
Yeah.
I think it really solidified just how weird that coupling is. And actually no fault of their own. I don't think either of them has been anywhere near a relationship before. You know, so they don't really know what to do. Dedra doesn't even know how to really be a person, you know, with her backstory. So, you know, it's like the ugh of that and the laughter that I think really drove home just how just odd this pairing is because of where they came from.
And even after kiss, Cyril's just kind of standing there like that didn't feel good. Like, but then later in the episode, Cyril runs out and he runs into the one girl from the rebellion and actually has a human interaction with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He gets slapped across the face.
How do you read that, by the way? How did you read the Cyril Enza alleyway scene? They get one moment, and here's my problem with episode 7, and it's not so much a problem, this is just the way the show is. It's like there is a year gap in between episode 6 and 7, and like it's great that the show doesn't spoon feed it to you. Like they're like, passage of time has happened, you fill in the gaps. Figure out what happened with Bix and Andor in that meantime. Now they're on Yavin. Cyril has been doing something on Gorman, Dedra, you know, that sort of thing. But Cyril and Enza being in the resistance movement, how did you guys read that? Did you guys read that scene weird? Because I read it weird at first glance.
There was a bit of he said something like, I had to find you or something.
I needed to see you.
Yeah, I needed to. I think the phrasing of I needed to see you. But I don't.
You don't think?
I don't think Cyril can pull Enza.
No.
But it's obviously that he's ingratiated himself into this community in the past year, right? And he's kind of pleading with her, like, if you just give me some outside agitators, maybe I can stop this. And like, that's so Cyril to think that he can stop this at this point. Like he's gonna FaceTime Partagast and be like, no, here's the name.
Yeah.
I hated him in the first season. I love Cyril throughout this season. Because like, and I feel like I hated him before because I just didn't understand him. He truly wants to be a hero. That's all he wants to be.
He has that hero complex, yeah.
And that's everywhere he's been. He's like he thinks he's the main character. He thinks he's Luke Skywalker, and he's not. And so in that moment, he's like, yeah, my people are convinced that there's outside agitators, and he can't acknowledge that he is the outside agitator.
Yeah.
It's I don't know, it's just funny. But yeah, I love Cyril.
Yeah.
Not to jump ahead to episode 8, but just what did you guys think about? So he finds out what's going on, right? Is that okay to jump? I'm talking about Dedra and Cyril. Just because I've seen like some discourse about that he could have taken that opportunity then to turn, and instead he goes after Cassian. And I don't know. I read it that just like that was like an emotional outburst, no different than Mon Mothma dancing. You know what I mean? Because he was clearly horrified by the mining, or was he horrified by not knowing? What do you guys think?
I think what horrified him is like like he thought that he was doing something, and to find out, so he like loves order, right? This is the guy that was, order and all that kind of stuff. To find out that he actually had no idea what was going on, and then to be in the middle of like the most chaotic thing happening, had to be kind of frying his brain. And then I think when he saw Cassian, he was like, this is a thing I can do. This is it.
Right.
My other thought is he's there looking for outside agitators, and here is a clear person that's part of the Rebel Alliance.
Yeah.
Are you the outside agitator I didn't find? Right? Kind of viewing him that way. And for me, the idea that like he could have started saving people, right? Or he could have, I don't think that he ever had that in him.
No.
I think he's in there, he's kind of shell-shocked from what's happening. I don't think, and even for him, like you said, Choco, like he wants to be a hero, but he's still, his way of being a hero is to finally kill Cassian, not to see if anyone here in the plaza needs help, right? Because he has such a warped idea of what being a hero in that situation is.
I think, I definitely think he has a hero complex, and he doesn't understand what it's like to be a hero. I think the easy way to be a hero is that sort of run and gun, target, run after that person, track someone down and whatever. But as we see with the Resistance, being a hero is about like sacrifice and doing the right thing at the right moment, which Cyril doesn't get. And I think that's important. I don't know if we're jumping almost too far to talk about Cyril and his end, because part of me was like, oh, his emotional outburst of him choking Dedra comes before that,
Yeah.
his idea of not being in the loop. If we're looking at Cyril and Dedra, and just side note before I forget, has Partagaz ever set foot on Gorman? I don't think so, right?
I don't think so.
No.
It's just classic,
Well,
like, he's over there being like, all right, it is bad luck Gorman.
Also,
Not only does
the
he
way-
not care, but he's always reprimanding Dedra for like showing emotion
Don't be
about
emotional. Yeah.
slaughtering people.
he says that yeah, she's too animated. And then he's always late. Every time she's in that
Yes.
pod waiting for him, he opened with "Sorry to keep you waiting." Like, he's late every time. She's sitting in there alone.
It's because of power, right? Every time we see someone with power, there's someone with power over them. And we know that the ultimate, I mean, Vader has the Emperor over him, right? Like, every time, like Tarkin and, I mean, Partagaz to Krennic to Tarkin to Vader to the Emperor, like, there's always that power. So Dedra's just a small cog. And then Cyril thinks he has power, but Dedra owns him.
And I think that was a huge message in these episodes of seeing these people, you know, I mean, I think in that moment when he's standing in the crowd, well, I mean, so his whole emotional outburst started when the person who I call the French dad, the Gorman guy who's like the leader of the head, he's like the father of one person.
Yeah.
That person grabs Cyril because he realizes this whole thing is a trap. You know, we have to stop this thing. You know,
Non-violently.
His daughter is like, you know, we can't stay silent anymore, and he's like, you'll be silent when you're dead. And you're like, that's powerful. They still have to fight. Anyways, yeah, so he attacks Cyril, and that's what sends Cyril on this whole thing, because he realizes, you know, is this play about us? He realizes been a puppet this entire time, and the whole thing is all puppets. They bring in this super green, you know, troopers who are going to cause more issues, right? They tell these guys they're on patrol for this. That's not why they're on patrol. They're meant to agitate the crowd. They are puppets. So Cyril's above them, realizing that he's a puppet, and then when the other Imperial who comes in with the scar in his face, who's just super evil because that's why he has a scar.
Right.
You know, Dedra's his puppet, and so by the end of the episode, Dedra's like, "We'll go back. We'll be heroes and all this stuff." You know, at the end, she's like very emotional. I think in that moment, she finally realizes that she thought she was in control of this operation, but she's a puppet.
She's not even in control of herself.
Yeah.
Right? Because when people want to be in control, they try to control themselves first and then move outwards. And that also means like keeping a straight face, not breaking down, not having panic attacks. Dedra has panic attacks, right? Like at that end when she's trying to straighten her uniform, the things that you can control. She's trying to keep it together and she can't.
Why do you think Cyril was so unhappy? Because I think there would have been when he finds out what's really wrong. Like, I think the show plays it as it's a betrayal that he didn't know, right? Or is he upset that they're going to destroy this planet? Because isn't there, for a law and order guy in a law and order relationship, isn't the truth that this was highly classified and I wasn't allowed to tell you? Isn't that reasonable?
I see Cyril as someone who, like, when I say he wants to be a hero, I think he wants to be a good guy and truly believes that that's what he's doing and being. And then in that moment, when it was like, this is a slaughter, you've been lied to about the reason that you're here. You're not here to be a hero by catching these insurgents. You are the insurgent. And so, like, he realizes that good and lawful are diametrically opposed in this moment, and that's why he loses himself, because good is not, he is the bad guy, and he's like, I just want to be the good guy. And I think at that moment he sees Cassian and he's like, of all times, you, this mother, like, I don't, it just loses it.
It's
And
amazing to see them almost
that moment was
meet
like,
each other.
who are you?
Yeah, it's like you're already having a bad
where they
day,
pass
and
down the
then
stairs. Yeah.
then your ex walks by with their new hotter person, and you're like, I was already having a bad day, and now this person's here. I think that Cyril, because I wrote down, you know how much I love a pronoun. So he starts with "What have you done?" and then he says, "What are we doing here?" So he kind of puts himself like, I was part of the, like, he thinks that he's part
Part
of
of
the
the big
mission,
mission. Yeah.
and then to be told by your partner, like, you're not even you're not a part of this thing that you were in, right? Because just a couple episodes ago, when they were talking to Partagast, and he was like, when he brought that information to Partagast, he said it's the best day of his life.
Yeah.
Right. So his whole thing is like, he's an Imperial asset. He's doing such good work. Like, he spent 2 years doing this good work on Gorman, and he finds out that actually it was all a lie. And I think when that crumbles, obviously, like, don't choke your girlfriend out. Like, that was horrific, right? We don't have any sympathy for Dedra, but we also don't have any sympathy. I don't have much sympathy for Cyril either.
No.
Right? That idea that he's like powerless at that moment. He, and he often is, right? But I think that his space away from his mother might have built up his confidence a little bit. And then to see it come crushing down like that, because it was like the bookend 1-2 punch of like, what kind of being are you? Which is what Ryland says to him.
Yeah.
And then the "who are you" from Cassian is just like great. Like,
Yeah.
that's like the worst thing that could happen, right? Like, that's the worst thing that could happen, is you find out your arch enemy has no idea who you are.
He wants
And
to
he
be
got, like,
person. Am I the only person who thought of the
Thanos?
live action Street Fighter movie?
oh, it was just a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was
it? He's talking to Chun-Li, and Chun-Li's like, I came in here because you came to my village, you burned everything, you killed my father. And then he casually is like, and Bison casually is like, the day Bison came to your village was the most important day of your life. But for me, it was Tuesday.
Yeah.
You're like, damn, that was rough.
Quick thing, shout out to anyone in our chat. If you're watching us live right now, you're watching us on youtube.com/The Keeg Show or twitch.tv/The Keeg Show. Light Blinded Fool just hopped into the YouTube chat talking about Force healers being, canon, and everyone's Force sensitive in some way. They like the way it subtly reminded us about the Force in a show that's largely staying away from it. I think that fandom is kind of split on like, how did we like that? But bringing it back to sorry, Sarah.
I was gonna say, Choco, I also thought of the Scarlet Witch thing of you took everything from me, and then he says, I don't even know who you are. But then I also thought of the Mad Men one, where the character says to Don Draper, I feel bad for you, and then he says, I don't think about you at all. I there's like so many lovely references to that.
Oh, and also Batman Beyond. You killed my father. I've killed many fathers.
This with everything, I think we're leading our conversations into the Gorman Massacre. I think just for the purpose of this conversation. If we rewind a little bit to Wilman and Andor. Why would I blank on the main character's name? Wilman and Andor getting into the ship. That one general from Rogue One comes in. This is the first time we're seeing him in Andor.
General Draven.
Draven, yeah. And he comes in, and if I didn't rewatch Rogue One like literally 2 days ago or whatever, I would have been like, oh, okay, he looks familiar.
He has a very distinctive face.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
They have a little conversation, kind of reminding us that like this Andor is not the Andor that we see in Rogue One yet. There are big things to come, right? The rest of the season to happen. But Wilman and Andor fly in low and around, and then they go to the hotel where we do see Wilman. They break up, right? They split as Andor goes into the hotel. I want to bring up the hotel guy.
Love that guy.
Was he in the previous arc? Was he?
Yeah.
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 And he says in episode 7, he says you'll have to carry your own bag this time. And so I was just tickled there because yeah, he figured out. I mean, and Cassian radicalized him upstairs in that in
That's
that little
right.
room, and he remembered that and remembered him, and it
But not the
was a
same
big deal
name.
for him.
I
Yeah,
think maybe he was partially radicalized by watching Grand Moff Tarkin land his
land a ship on
ship
people.
on his dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But he was quiet,
that
right?
little bit that too.
I think
you know?
that'll do it.
It was good casting too because he had a very distinctive face. Like you remembered
Mhm.
him, like, oh, that's the same guy that checked him in when Cassian was playing fashion designer
Yeah.
spy in the previous arc. You know, you remember, oh, that's that same guy. I love when they do casting stuff like that. That helps you out.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I was
because
like
there's a lot of
Eric
white people
Foreman.
in the show. Like they could all look the same,
Yeah.
so they pick people with like distinctive features so you can remember who's who.
Yeah. I heard, by the way, that they cast people who spoke French so that they could twist the French to make the Gorman language, that it was similar but different. And I mean, because the French resistance whole thing is kind of a big part of this Gorman thing, right? Like,
And then
it's
they also have
yeah.
French accents when they're speaking in English, so which is
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. So sorry. Will having the relationship with the one French, not the French girl, the Gorman girl, I thought was interesting. I thought I didn't expect to see Will in this arc at all. I thought he would have died in between arcs.
No, he's gonna die the next arc. He's got to go, man. He's not in Rogue One. Sorry.
I agree,
Make
but
the
also
rules.
disagree. Not everybody is seen in Rogue One.
I know, but Willman would be on that transport in Rogue
Willman
One.
is
You don't think
gonna
Willman
die.
would be
Willman's
on?
gonna die. Everyone's dead. That's not in Rogue
Willman's-
One. I'm surprised that Bix didn't die, and I'm thrilled about it. So that's the one
Yeah.
we get. We get that one. Dedra. You
I
know,
was gonna be
Willman.
so pissed if they killed Bix.
Yeah, and that was actually really nice.
Yeah,
I liked how
made
they
it.
handled it. I know we're jumping around,
yeah,
but
no, they made it work. I just think the idea that like somebody could be on the other side of the galaxy, we don't know, right?
You're doing it again, Dimitri. You did this when you
Willman
walked
has
into Rogue
nothing else
One,
to
and you're doing it
do.
now.
Willman would be with Cassian doing the Rogue One mission. He would. And what I like about Willman, there's been some really funny threads about it, like, you know, that his whole mission in the rebellion is to hook up with a different girl on every planet, you know?
Willman has a girlfriend on Scarif already, for sure.
Yeah, you know, but like that's what we're but
If
that's
he
what we're
was in
fighting
Rogue One, he'd have a
for.
girlfriend on Scarif.
Mm.
Yeah, I'd love. That's what we're
Right.
fighting for.
That's
That's
what
what you're
that's
fighting
what
for.
we're fighting for, to just see that him finding with young people, and it's making him do what he needs to do, and I have to find her and I have to go get her. Like that's, first of all, it feels realistic that would be a real thing that would happen in a war. I've never been in one, but I assume. And it reminds you that, like, yeah, these are people, and that's what we're fighting for to end with a cliche.
It's, I mean, majority women for Will, but I also think his Rhydonium thing with Saw Gerrera is also indicative of like he needs to attach himself to somebody. Right?
Oh, sure, because he lost his dad, and so he's just a kid basically, and he doesn't want to be alone. Yeah, that's a great observation.
Yeah. Mulan, the song, "Girl Worth Fighting For," right?
Yeah.
You know,
That's written by Willman.
I feel bad for him, but I refuse to know for sure that he's going to die.
He's not dead yet, so let's focus on that. Still alive as of this moment.
He's not dead
Yeah.
yet. He's absolutely going to be fighting somewhere. So it is possible that, I don't know, I think Luthen's going to die in the next arc as well. But
Yep.
and
Clea.
I was like, I feel like one of them's going to die. Actually, no. I'm going to rephrase that. My prediction is that Clea is going to die, and Luthen is going to have this thing as the person who has given up his life, but has this weird survivorship guilt because he just won't die.
Or after Rogue One, Luthen, I dare to say, Luthen ends himself. I would say maybe could it be possible that he's like, my age is done. Now we have this new rebellion, this new sort of like focus. Luke Skywalker is there. Who knows, right? They win the Battle of Yavin. Is there a place in the rebellion for someone like Luthen?
I could actually see him doing that if there was no need for an accelerationist.
Yeah.
He's trying to get this thing off the ground. And
Yeah,
once it's off
true.
the ground, him to be like, I hate this life. I don't want to do this. And I don't need to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
I
he does it,
could
right?
see
He
that.
says, no Yavin for me. Like, he knows that Mon Mothma is the kind of person that needs to be on Yavin, not Luthen. There's
Right.
no.
All roads are leading people to Yavin, a more respectable sort of place. And the people like the Maya Pei Brigade don't, I would assume, never get to see it. Like, they
Were they on Yavin?
They were on Yavin,
mean,
but I assume they started.
They got to
there.
literally see Yavin, but they don't get to
Yeah.
see the rebel base on Yavin.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because the rebellion doesn't have a place anymore for that sort of like thing, right? Saw Gerrera knows that his time has passed in Rogue One. The old ways are done. I'm very interested in the next 3 episodes, but let's stick to this. We also see that Mon Mothma. Wait, is this in episode? We see. Does Mon have just a couple of lines or whatever to do in episode 7 and 8? Essentially, she talks to the Gorman senator.
She's in episode 7. I can't even remember her.
Doesn't she have the meeting with the Gorman senator?
That's in episode 7.
In 7, yeah.
And he does say that they don't even bother to lie badly. Is that what he says? The quote, which means obviously that Imperial propaganda, it's working, right? Like it's pretty much done. Everything is lined up.
The use of buzzwords by the people that are there, like the Empire media that are there, they say it a couple times. They start it. It's like their headline in episode 7. The first time we see it, they say it. The continued and inexplicable Gorman resistance to imperial norms is the phrase that they use, which is, first of all, it's like a really well-written line, right? But also like this idea of like, why are they trying to resist colonization? Like, we're just being the good guys. But they say in episode 8, the Empire, many people are asking, including some Gormans, how long the Empire's patience can be tested. There's rumors of a general strike. So we heard Dedra say earlier, or we heard someone say that they were just rumors, right? Or Dedra said to Partagast that people are saying that they're seeing the mining ships. And he's like, those are just rumors. And it's like, okay, so we're not okay with rumors if the Gormans are talking about it. But if it's a rumor that we are spreading, that's what we want. We want rumors of a general strike, right? We want rumors of how long can it be tested. And then the second one is, even though Imperial officials strive to desperately negotiate a peaceful demonstration, which is like, no, they're not. The local insurgents spread rumors through the night and have organized this highly volatile insurrection you see behind me. And it's so interesting. Like, even if we didn't see it, we would know that that's an Imperial lie. But this idea that they intentionally spread the rumors, which we know is not true, that they organized this demonstration, which we know is not true. They just heard Cassian call and say they're moving the barricades, and they all just decided to go, right? So to see them make up the lie, that then we see Edie watching on TV and all of her friends being like, this of course is the truth, right? This is the news that we're seeing, was like harrowing and like so well. It was so like on the nose, but not in a way that was obnoxious. And I've read like 80 interviews now with Tony Gilroy where he was like, they were talking about historical things, and he's like, well, sadly, there's like 1,000 genocides you can pick from. So he's like, it's not any one thing. It's, there's in history, there's been a lot of revolutions where this kind of thing has happened, and, kind of inspired by all of those. So
what was effective about that, I thought, with that inexplicable refusal to conform to imperial norms, is that Partagast says at first in his conversation with Dedra, and then in the very next scene, there's the live reporter outside doing their live shot using the exact same turn of phrase. And the phrase, like you said, Sarah, is so memorable that you're like, oh, it emphasizes immediately in such a quick and effective way that is just spoon fed to them from the Empire. Because originally I thought the news reporters was very Earth, Like that, I
Mhm.
just felt I'm like, why? Maybe because I was in that business for a long time. I was like, that's something that Earth people do is they set up live cameras outside of like a news scene. But then when that happened, like Partagas' exact phrase is used by I'm like, oh, that's why they're doing it. It makes perfect sense. And of course, also this is, as we all know, the news about what happens there is what starts to turn the tide. So everyone can't know what happened there if there wasn't news on the scene.
Right.
Yeah. I just want to add because they were spreading that the mining ships were landing, but they literally were landing the mining ships. That part
Yeah.
wasn't a rumor, and
Yeah.
that's how bold and how and Cass is like everyone's already here. Like obviously this is a genocide because they aren't responding to it. All of this stuff has already happened. They are already starting to mine this planet. When Cyril walks up and awkwardly walks into a room full of K2 units. I love that scene.
KX
But
units, right? Which I thought was
KX,
interesting.
yeah.
KX units,
Yeah.
What are K frees
Um,
like? I don't know.
I don't know. But
Even funnier.
yeah, so it's like, why aren't they out there? Because that might calm everyone down, or the stormtroopers come. But yeah. Also,
And
they were terrifying when they came out.
Yes.
Cyril says that to Rylands too. He's like, those are rumors. And then Rylands like, how can you even fix your mouth to say that? Like, I know that you don't believe that. Like, in your heart of hearts, I know that you know that those ships are there, right? Like, how sad. He's almost like viewing him like pathetic. Like, how pathetic that you're even trying to say that to me right now. But yeah, the KXs are crazy. I also, because I'm this way, I timed it, how long the Gorm Massacre scene goes on. And they bring out the KX droids 4 minutes into it. So there's like 4 minutes of just straight like blaster carnage before they bring out the KX droids. Also, I don't think there's any proof that the one that was mad dogging Cyril is K2, but in my heart, that's K2, 100%. Someone tried to like do a screenshot of the damage that was on his chest and K2's damage, and I was like, okay, but he also did get like cut in half.
There's
Right,
damage
by a
in there,
tank,
more
yeah.
damage.
He got
So-
hit by.
Yeah.
But as soon as that one, like it was like a jump scare when you walked in and you saw all the eyes. Because like K2 is so charming that I never thought he was scary until I saw all of the KX units in there.
The one just locking eyes with
when
Cyril?
he locked eyes and
Yeah.
lingered, I was like, that is my son K2SO.
That's K2.
That's him. And apparently in Jedi Survivor, the KX droids are like terrifying too.
Yeah, that's what I was
That's
gonna
awesome.
say.
Yeah.
Like you first run into them on Ilum and in Jedi Fallen Order, and you walk into a room and it picks you up and it just whoops your ass, and you're like, what am I supposed to do against that? Like they are. I love that they're keeping them.
Is it like the bloaters in The Last of Us? Is it like a comp to that where it's like you have to die like 80 times trying to kill one and then you finally get to kill one?
And then you finally kill it, and then you go into another room and there's like
There's
four
more?
of them, and you're like, oh, okay, you hate me. Like, what role am I playing? The victim? Like, what the hell?
So, yeah.
Thinking
When
at the start,
it comes out and kicks the barricade, just that I don't know, man.
They're just Terminators.
No.
You know? They're there for one thing and one thing only. They're not cops. They're not security droids.
Yeah, they're security droids.
But like they're just there to massacre people, right?
Yeah.
You know, at the very
Backing
least
up-
intimidate people, but then massacre, right? Jen,
Go,
are you
Jen.
gonna say
Scariest
something?
thing is
No,
they
yeah,
don't
I was gonna
have
say Jen, you've been trying to say
blasters.
that for like 2 minutes.
no, I was just because we're talking about the Gorman massacre and what kicked it off. Like
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty clear that the sniper was deliberately shooting a fellow Imperial because it wanted to be shown that everyone's nodding their head. But I've seen some things that are saying that they didn't shoot right. There's what they were aiming for a Gorman. I'm like, no, right? Just the idea was that, oh my gosh, Imperials were shot.
Right.
These horrible Gormans,
Yeah.
right? Okay, that's
Oh yeah.
that's no discussion. But I heard some things then I watched it the second time. I'm like, was that a mistake? I don't think they miss. I mean, I know they're Imperial. We have those jokes about stormtroopers, but that's not
These stormtroopers
Yeah.
don't
snipers.
miss.
Yeah,
And
these
he wasn't
stormtroopers
yeah,
don't
he
miss
was
in
a
Andor.
sniper.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
It-
mean, what's the difference between black suit and white suit Imperial officers? Is there a difference?
well, the ISB is the light gray, so
Okay.
they're like CIAs
Right.
or spies, and then the black guys I think would be ops, but I don't know.
Yeah,
That's like a Choco question.
no, that I don't know. I mean, they do have different roles within it. So, like specifically in the expanded universe, they would have like local garrison type of infrastructure, and then they would have the Imperial one that travels from place to place. That's sometimes a difference, but it's been kind of inconsistent.
When the young soldiers kind of land first, I thought they were coming in because they were the highly trained, like, Navy SEALs of them all, and then they mentioned that they're so young and like inexperienced.
They're brought there to die.
Yeah, and then that switches because the one guy who, there's a quote from the one guy dressed in black, I don't know his name, but he says, you're the finger, I'm the trigger, right? Is that what he says?
Yeah.
To Dedra, yeah.
And so it's like, I viewed it as like the sniper is part of the very experienced team of like, that guy's not gonna miss, he's gonna hit what he aims for, he's not the inexperienced troop. Those guys walking through sent like lambs to the slaughter. Those guys.
Totally. And when he says that to Dedra, I read that as like Dedra's going to get blamed for this entire thing. It's going to be her neck because he can say she gave the order.
Yeah.
This was her thing when she, and and you can tell kind of, I think that Dedra realizes that a little bit too. And we were talking about a little bit earlier about how she's losing control, but she's also, I think, starting to dawn on her that if this goes south, there's one person to blame, and it's the person in the uniform she's wearing. So,
I mean, her signature's on everything.
Here's the question: like,
they make her
public,
give the order, but they've already set up everything.
Yeah,
like, say it. Like she doesn't have a choice but to say it.
When he says finger and trigger, it makes it seem like she's the one with power, and he's like, I'll just follow what you say.
Yep.
The orders are coming from above. I mean, I don't think that Dedra would get in trouble to the public. I think that this has been manufactured in a way that, like, I don't think there is a reason to point the blame at anyone other than the Gormans, as opposed to on the Imperial side, unless Dedra messed up what the Imperials were trying to do, and then, sure, right? If she doesn't pull the trigger, then she's blamed.
Right, but this is the incident that turns the tide for the Rebel Alliance, right? So when that happens, the Empire and Palpatine, whoever, is gonna be like, who did this to make the and it's gonna come down to her. That's what I meant by she's gonna be blamed by the Emperor to be like, well, this was all her fault, that to maybe stem the tide, I would think. Obviously we'll find out next, but I think that's how she's gonna get to go.
When little Imperial children go to school, in their history books, it's going to say Dedra Meero gave that.
She gave the order. She messed up, and that's why we have all these pesky rebels now. It's because of her.
All roads now lead us to the Gorman massacre. The sniper takes a shot on the young
teenagers. Yeah.
The young guys. Then the one guy, he looks up at the line of sight of like roughly where the sniper, because he knew it came from above, right? And he sees the guy waving the flag and he shoots him first.
Yeah.
And he falls and things start ramping up. Molotov cocktails, right?
Yeah.
I do want to, what I will say is, if I may, before it starts, they are, starting to do things. They're starting to pass off Molotov cocktails. And it's when the farmer guy, oh my gosh, I wrote his name down and I can't. I didn't. Oh no.
The surly one?
Yeah, surly one. The surly guy.
Starts singing.
Yeah, he starts singing when he kind of resigns himself to the fact that, like, he like knows what's gonna happen. Right, he's like, I can see that the violence is about to start, and he starts singing the national anthem. I guess it's I don't know if it's the anthem, but like, I mean, and before that, they're saying this is one of two history things I'm going to do. I'll only do it twice.
Yeah.
They are chanting, "We are the Gore, the galaxy is watching," and this is something that I like could not bring myself to not talk about.
Yeah.
Because my dad is a Vietnam vet, and he talks a lot about Vietnam. The whole world is watching. is what the anti-Vietnam protesters said at the Democratic National Convention, and then they were like ruthlessly beaten by police. So it was a peaceful protest. They were saying the whole world is watching, and then they got just not massacred by the police, but they were beaten.
Mhm.
So this idea that they're saying, I'm gonna cry, that the Gore are saying the galaxy is watching, and like the tragedy is galaxy's not watching because they cut off communications, and what the galaxy is watching is the Imperial news that is saying that you guys are terrorists, right? So you are like this hopeful thing of like the galaxy is watching, but it's not, because the Empire is only going to show the galaxy the version of the story that they want to see. And it's just like that idea of like, if they had cell phones and could post it on social media, the galaxy would be watching, and maybe the galaxy wouldn't do anything. But like this idea that like they're chanting the galaxy is watching, and like the tragedy is that they can't, like that they're not, right? And that's what happens with the radio broadcast, which will be my second history thing, is the radio broadcast. She's saying to all open channels, but there are no open channels. They've shut down communication, right? So like it's a call to watch and witness what's happening, but there's no one to see it. Was like gutting. Like that messed me up for sure.
Oh.
Yeah. I think it's easy to point at Star Wars to be like World War II analogs, but like George Lucas has mentioned the Vietnam War specifically in interviews and whatnot, and it's almost to the tune of like history repeats itself and repeats itself and repeats itself. Like the timelessness of fascism is funny in that way. So the fact that there are Vietnam War analogs as well, like it's everything rolled together.
And there's a lot of people that are pointing out, how timely whatever they're watching is. And the thing I keep saying is they're doing this based off of historical fascist regimes that have risen.
Yeah.
They are not trying to say like, look at this thing that's happening now. If you're seeing parallels, that's like
It's
if you're
historical
seeing the
blueprint.
parallels, it's because there's a blueprint that's being followed, and you should take note.
Yeah. The Gorman Massacre was rough.
Also, like all the theater kids, very, very hard to not get Les Mis. Can you hear the people sing, right? When they're literally singing the song. I wrote down the lyrics of like, raise your eyes to the homeland skies, breathe the air and know you're there. Valley, Highland, let me spend my everyday there. Call your kin to come and sing, we are the Gore. So this idea of like, you're picking a place that's like very proud of their planet, right? Like they do have that kind of like patriotism of proud to be Gormans, and you're gonna annihilate their planet. You're gonna, there's not gonna be much left to call home, as Partagast says. So yeah, anytime people are singing in the face of a revolution, you're like, oh, Les Mis.
Les Mis.
Yeah.
Also, I just think it's interesting that they're proud to be Gore, but they're not supremacists.
No, but that's the thing too, is like that idea can get warped very easily, right? Of like being proud of your homeland, and then because that's the whole World War II thing, right? Like the whole that they were able to use that pretty effectively.
Yeah. The KX droids come out, and for some reason, Cyril isn't shot in any of this. He's not like pushed. Is he pushed to the ground ever? Like, I feel like Cyril is walking through it unharmed.
Does he get bumped around a little bit? But yeah, basically unharmed, I think.
And I think that's symbolic.
Yeah.
That he's constructed this whole thing and yet apart from it, to the point where if he chooses, as long as he chooses not to, it doesn't harm him. It just harms everybody around him.
I saw it as, because even when the camera pans around him, he's standing up straight, everyone else is like bent and like shots are fired, but he's just like, this is like, what have I done? This is what I have wrought, with my actions. I am complicit in all of this death. I'm a part of it.
Yeah.
And I do think he has some affection for these people. Like he's been living here
Absolutely.
for 2 years, right? He knows that they didn't start it. So I think to reach, that's always one of my favorite tropes, is like when a character reaches enlightenment right before they die, right? Like it's too little too late. That he kind of realizes, what he's done and what they've done, what he's sat back and watched happen without realizing what was happening. His facial expressions are just crazy. Like everyone's Diego Luna's acting in this episode was astounding. Like especially the end shot of him was just heartbreaking. But yeah, that actor's performance was with just his face, because I don't think I think his last line is when he tells Dedra, he says, "Good luck, Dedra," and then he walks out the door, and then he doesn't have another line. He doesn't say anything to Cassian. I think that's his final line. From that point till the point he gets killed on screen, he doesn't have another line.
And it also says something about his character that he'd rather be out there with them than in here with the Imperials.
But he doesn't join them. And we already talked about this.
Yeah.
He doesn't join them. He's still technically on the Empire side to the end, going after the rebels, going after the rebel in his mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've seen some discourse about that he is a collaborator until the end. So
yeah.
What was he upset about? Why did he stomp off? Because he is a part of the mission. The mission was successful. It wasn't the mission he knew about, but he would understand that some things are classified and that Dedra can't tell him. But so why was he upset? And I like how it could be open to interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That he might not have been a good guy. He's not coming to a realization. Maybe he's just pissed at Dedra because he's a brat.
Because he has kind of that same thing on Ferrix when all that stuff goes down on Ferrix. He has that same kind of shell shocked.
Yes.
Right. So who's to know if he was able to, if some alternate reality, right? If he kills Cassian, is he able to walk back into the ISB office and be like, well, that was crazy, right? Like, just
like Anchorman?
Yeah, that escalated quickly, right? The Corrin Massacre escalated quickly. That idea of like where he would have gone, right? If this wasn't enough to get him to and I like that it wasn't a redemption arc, right? He didn't people, right? He didn't go and save Enza. She was murdered by a KX droid, right? That idea that I think you have a little bit, maybe like a kernel of sympathy for him as he's like realizing, but it's like I don't have a lot. And I think he's a really interesting character. I think if they would have made it more of a redemption arc, I wouldn't have liked it. Like I don't think he got redeemed in the end. Like he got like a 2% redemption when he realized and was like, oh no. But then the fact that he snaps back on Cassian is like, you haven't changed.
You can realize that what you were doing was wrong. You still have to do what's right. You know what I mean? Like,
he did the first half of it. He realized it was wrong, but then didn't. Yeah.
Did he realize it was wrong, or did he realize he was mistaken? I feel like those are different things.
Yeah.
I feel like Cyril, I don't think he understands the classified order of operations, or at least he does, but he thought he was working with the Emperor, or the Empire, with the Empire versus for the Empire. Like, he's just a pawn, but he wants to be a cowboy that's like a consultant, brought in, do his job. Boom, he's very important. He's the top of the information. And like, boom, boom, boom. But then he realizes he's just a pawn. So many secrets being kept from him. And he's not the cowboy that he thought he was. He's just part of the machine.
Yeah. It's like much more of an internal conflict for him of like, I can't believe I've been lied to and I wasn't who I thought I was, as opposed to I feel so bad the people of Gorman are getting slaughtered. Because if he did feel that bad, he would start helping.
Yeah.
Right.
But I didn't know he could fight like that. That fight was crazy.
Yeah.
He was a beast. Yeah.
I like that there's a moment where they're both covering each other's mouths.
Right at the beginning.
No dialogue. We can't explain who he's not. You did this, you did that. And it's like, no, we're covering each other's mouths for this part of the fight.
I mean,
because Diego Luna he's not a big guy, he's a little dude.
Yeah.
And Cyril's
also lanky. I just need one scene of Cyril working out in his apartment, and then I would believe it. I'm just kidding. I don't.
I mean, before Cyril sees Andor, I think it's important that he sees Enza die, right? She just gets like snapped, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the KX droid.
It's a crazy scene too. She flies through the air, lands and slides in one shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what the KX droids are there for, just to crush people. The stormtroopers obviously create a perimeter. They start firing. The KX droids come out to crush people. Cyril, through the carnage, sees Andor finally after, crossing him and not seeing him previously. And they fight. There's a lot going on. Cyril does pull the gun, or does he grab Andor's gun? Is it Andor's gun that's
Cyril
being pointed?
grabs Andor's gun, yeah.
Right, because it clatters to the ground, I think, in the skirmish.
Yeah. And then there's that bomb goes off, the grenade goes off outside the wall, which blows it through, and then
the bellhop, the check-in guy, sets off the bomb.
That's one bomb. Then there's another grenade outside the bar or whatever. I think they're fighting in the bar outside the window.
Yeah.
They both see the grenade drop, and then it separates them for a moment, gives Cyril the upper hand, right?
But the bellhop's grenade, so and I only know this because I just rewatched it to finish my notes. The bellhop's grenade, Cassian is lined up for the shot on Dedra, and then the bellhop's grenade goes off, and then he doesn't take it, and then and then another grenade happens again. So he has multiple times where he almost gets Dedra, and then something happens. It's like,
Cyril points the gun and who are you? And Cyril drops the gun. Some people were like, online were like, if he just would have stayed alive and explained, then he could have joined the rebellion.
No,
he was
never.
He's not going to join it.
No.
Or he shouldn't join it.
He wouldn't.
It's not for him. No, he would never.
He's too much down that path.
He would do nothing before he would join the rebellion. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it just a reflex of being so shocked that you just said that to me that he lowers his blaster?
He's had a how many years long obsession with finding this guy? Like that's been his whole thing. Like this has been 4 years now that Cassian Andor has been on his mind, and Cassian has never had any idea that he exists.
I don't know.
They know who Dedra is. They recognize Dedra.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they don't know Cyril. Cyril's so small potatoes. Yeah. Have you guys ever had that where someone you've thought about someone from your past and then you're it's just someone being bullied in high school, the quote that the what was it? The axe forgets, but the trees remember, or something.
That's the name of one of the episodes in season 1. Is the axe forgets, and the tree remembers. Yeah. But I think
what episode was that one?
4 of season 1. Season 1.
It's an Aldani.
It's part of the heist.
One of the Aldani heist episodes. Yeah.
And so I mean that comes into play here.
Yeah.
And then is it Lazine? No, who's the guy who shoots Cyril?
Caro Rylands.
The French dad.
Yeah,
the non-violent guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're going to do this peacefully.
Good for him.
And it just drops off there for him.
Yeah.
We don't know.
We see a shot of him in his shop. Listening to while the radio broadcast.
Oh yeah, with the bolts of
plays.
fabric.
Yeah, and we don't see. Yeah, it's a gorgeous shot and so sad. It's this is what it was, right? We were a planet that made fabric, and this is what it's become. It's so sad.
It's also, it just interesting. The Empire wasn't there to steal their fabric. It was a resource they didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
Right.
That serves no purpose other than what they need with the Death Star.
Yeah, it's Lightblinded Fool in the chat said Cyril's a tragic character, and I totally like that. I love a tragic character. I love a tragic character that you don't feel bad for. He's a classic Macbeth, right? Sorry, Macbeth, you shouldn't have murdered all those people, right? You wrought, you're just, this is what you sow, and
Yeah.
this is what happened. Like it's such a sad, it's like tragic but not sad,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like this
Yeah. Especially with how
end for this
unceremonious
character,
his death was. That's just like dead.
Yeah.
Cassian still doesn't know who that guy is.
Yep. And I think so. Okay, this is the last thing I'll say. I'm being annoying. The comparison between Cassian. I think I saw an edit of this on TikTok, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love that. Where they just had the images of like the difference between Cyril and Cassian and the love that they experienced in their life, like Edie versus Marva and Dedra versus Bix, and then the way that the Empire treated Cyril versus the way the rebellion treats Cassian. Like he's a valuable person that they need versus he's just an unimportant little piece that we could throw away. Like just the little change in their lives. Not to say that it's like nature versus nurture, right? If he only had a nice mom, maybe he would have been better. But like this idea of the thesis of it being love, right? The love that he didn't get. His mom sucks so bad. And his mom, given real crocodile tears there at the end. There's nothing rolls down her face. She's got watery eyes, but not a tear. He gave her a spider and she was like, maybe I'll name it Cyril. Like, but like this idea that that's where and he didn't have anything. So of course he's going to obsess over Cassian for years because he doesn't have anything meaningful in his life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Star Wars editors, not the editors on the show, obviously editors on the show, but on TikTok, there's just been some really good Andor edits out there. So I just wanted to shout out Youngling Slayer on TikTok, because I think I told Youngling Slayer I'd shout them out, making really good edits. Sure, the name is funny, but the edits that Youngling Slayer is making on TikTok hit me to the core. So shout out to them.
I'll have to check them out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna shout out Priscilla Edits because she made an edit for me.
Oh yeah.
I had an idea for an edit based on Hadestown, because the end of Hadestown says that it's a tragedy, but the fact that we tell the story again and hope that it might turn out this time. And she did a Cassian edit where it says like to know how the story ends and then it's them on Scarif. And I was like, please make this edit. I don't know how to edit. And she did. Yeah. And it made me cry.
Shout out also to Light Blinded Fool that's in our YouTube chat. The thing about Cyril is his thinking is lazy. He never investigated whether he might be wrong until it was too late. Yeah, his goal is to be
he wasn't curious.
No. I also want to just connect the character of Cyril, who is not a good person, but is a great character, and the fact that we like him as a character, and we, like him in the narrative, but like, I don't think anyone's defending Cyril, right? Like,
no,
I think defending Cyril
I'm sure
would be
someone is
going one step too far, which I'd like to connect with John Walker in Thunderbolts and the MCU and whatnot. I just wanted to shout that out, that like, I like John Walker as a character and whatnot, but he's a horrible person, and there are people out there defending him. So I just think it's interesting.
With Cyril is you can see how what he thinks he's doing the right thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That I can see from his point of view. It's not like he's a mustache twirling villain like
Right.
Palpatine is, let's be quite honest. But like he thinks he's doing law and order. He thinks he's catching rebel spies that are agitating the government in charge. I mean, you can see how, even though we think he's terrible, and he is, I can see how he doesn't see it that way.
He's complex.
Yeah,
and that's how real villains are.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, even looking at anything throughout history, right? It's always the people at the top that are the mustache twirling villains and like truly evil. But then the people along the way that, not to be like people that are just following orders are not that bad, but like you can see how they got radicalized that certain way. And people are just people. Like, again, my dad got spit on when he came back from Vietnam, and he's a good person. And he was an MP, so he never, did anything. But this idea of like, yeah, but there are people in there, and the people that sent you there are the ones that we should be spitting on, but we can't spit on them, so we have to spit on you, right? Like, and maybe we should sometimes, maybe we shouldn't. But this idea that like, yeah, you can see how he got radicalized in this direction, the same way we saw Will got radicalized in the other direction, which is obviously like the one we more agree with and the one that is, more morally like obviously the way Serial got radicalized is morally objectionable, but you can see it makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's why his reality comes crashing down, is because he realizes he essentially or we are meant to realize he built his entire identity on like a foundation of sand, right? Like he just went all in the wrong direction.
I think from what I'm gathering, or what I've gathered and brought up from season 1, is the symbol of the brick is, I think, the biggest symbol in season 1. The fact that like people are one brick, you make a wall together. But I think that like for the forces of good, adding your brick in helps, but also not adding your brick in hurts. And there's the brick versus the panel in season 1, the panel of the Death Star. They are building together bits and pieces of the Death Star that then add up to make the Death Star, versus the brick that leads the revolution and whatnot. You throw a single brick, you build a wall, that sort of thing. And the people who aren't doing either are literally not doing either. And like that adds to it, right? And I think maybe the symbol of season 2 is a web. It's these interconnecting pieces and the structure of the web, the Gorlectopods, right? Like, because they bring up the spiders a lot. The spiders are very crucial to these arcs. And I think that like we've gone from a brick to a web. And like you take out a strand of the web and the web can stay intact, right? But it still builds towards something bigger. All these connections. I don't know. I'm throwing it out there.
I like it. I'm gonna have to play around with it.
Yeah.
In my mind, and we'll see what
Okay.
comes out.
But as we finish off this Gorman massacre, Will splits up. He goes to be with his girl. I thought he was dead at that point, but
so did Cassian. When you look at Cassian's face when he hugs him,
they have a
Cassian
goodbye.
thought he was never going to see him again.
They say goodbye.
Sure.
Yeah.
Face, stone, and sky.
Why does Cassian get that idea for K2 specifically? Like, why does he get that idea? Is there something earlier that sparks that idea to rewire the droid?
I think we saw it, right? Like, they're horrible. They're like a battle turner.
Yeah.
They're like, we need powerful. So we need one of these. This is awesome. Here's the one sitting here. It's cut cleanly in half. Let's pop it in the ship and go. Because I would have the same question. Like what makes did they capture it? I just think seeing them in action, and then there's one lying there, like, dude, we need that.
Is a resource.
I want that on my side. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, plus he was arrested by one earlier.
That's right.
And so he knows what it can do. It makes sense to me that he'd be like, I mean, there's one or two possibilities. We can get one of these on our side, or we can take it apart and we figure out how these things work, so we know how to deal with them.
Because he was shooting one with a blaster, like point blank, and it didn't do anything.
It didn't do anything.
So, yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Light Blinded Fool just brought up something. I just want to. We don't have to spend any time on it, but like, Light Blinded Fool talking about the World Wide Web started off as a source of knowledge, then it becomes 98% propaganda, and that it would be nice to have a true source of information and idea exchange. I don't think we ever had a true source of idea and information exchange. Like the internet maybe was good and then gets corrupted, but like before that, like even news organizations weren't serving all the people. But look at Vietnam, right? So
unless it's math, it's subject to something.
Subject to interpretation, right? Like everybody's getting something out. Just like everybody loves different aspects of Andor, other people, like everybody is getting something different out of Star Wars as a whole, whether it's Andor or whatnot. Let's move into episode 9, because I think what was interesting about this is that, like, I thought it'd be one storyline that goes from 7, 8, and 9. But like if I was to think, oh, the Gorman Massacre is going to happen in episode 9 because it's going to go beginning, middle, end, but rather it splits it up 7 and 8, and there's some thematic elements that happen that go through the whole thing, but 9 is kind of its own thing.
Well, the Gorman massacre is what prompts the creation of the solidification of Rebel Alliance, but it's not really the massacre, it's the reaction to it. So I think this made sense to me. Like,
Yeah.
so because it's the Mon Mothma speech and then how she galvanizes the Senate, and so that made sense to me, that that's not the end of that story. It's what Mon Mothma does,
It's the fallout.
and the public's reaction to it, that the greater realization that actually the Empire is not so cool. So
Yeah.
I know it made sense for me.
No, it makes sense. It was playing what's diverting expectations. Like, it was, I thought it was going to one, and then it was like, no, we finish this here, and now we move into
they happens. Flow together as opposed to like build on each other. Because like in season 1, it was very like, we're setting up the heist, we're meeting everybody, we're setting up the heist, we're doing the heist, right? Whereas this is more, it's more cause and effect, right? Here's what led to the Gorman massacre, here's the Gorman massacre, here's the fallout of the Gorman massacre.
It's so beautiful, just everything they're doing. It was a whole different change, but I was on the edge of my seat like all of episode 9. Like, I love episode 8, and like everybody's talking about episode 8 almost overshadowing episode 9. I don't know if you guys feel that way, because episode 9 I thought was great.
No, listen, Mon Mothma is my favorite.
Nine's the one.
In the show. So my butt cheeks unclenched for a brief moment when episode 9 began, but then when they arrested the Gorman senator, and God, he was like, what do you say? I know. I'm a senator with full rights and protections. No warrant, no charges. Will no one help me? Gorman is being slaughtered. It's my people today. It's yours tomorrow.
And they cut to a shot of Bale.
Yep. Yeah. He says, "Remember this day. Remember Gorman."
Yeah.
And that idea that
moment.
We end episode 8 with her saying, "Will no one help us?" And then we get into, "Will no one?" Yeah.
No, but that just reminded me of the quote from there's a German pastor from World War II who says, "First they came for the socialists and I didn't speak out because I was not socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists. I didn't speak out because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews and I did not speak out because I wasn't a Jew. And then they came for me and there was no one left to speak for me." And it just, I don't know. So that part cut me to the core because I've known that quote, and that's why it's these things, they build on each other, and fascist regimes will create a hierarchy and then slowly move from the bottom up, taking what they need and removing anything that they don't want, and by the time it gets to you.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. We see everywhere, but marginalized communities throwing even more marginalized communities out to the wolves in order to save themselves. I think is very sociologically, historically interesting. Why you couldn't see that you are also a marginalized community. Why would you think the buck stops at that point? It doesn't make any sense. Because the thought process of like outsiders are concentric circles. Who wins in the end is the one person, the Emperor, right? Like, the Emperor is the least expendable person. Even Vader is expendable to the Emperor.
Yeah.
And it's concentric circles outwards. We talked about the hierarchy of Krennic to Tarkin to Vader to Emperor earlier. Everyone can be sloughed off.
Yeah, I mean, my wife is Mexican, and there's her family. Well, never mind. I won't go into that.
I mean, but yes, throwing people to the wolves. Yeah. It's rough. We see it though now with the Senate, with the Galactic Senate, with the Galactic Senate in Star Wars. Are we going back and forth between real world or not? The Galactic Senate, the Gorman guy, the Gorman senator essentially is showing that like any senator can be arrested. That's easy. No one is safe. And then some people take it as, okay, I'll be safe if I'm quiet.
And that's what he said earlier in the previous arc.
Yeah.
Is he didn't want to rock the boat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he
So
even
quiet.
he was silent earlier to not rock the boat, and it still happened anyway. So even if you're silent and complicit, you don't get to you can't, there's nothing you can do to keep them from arresting you. There's no level for how good you can be for the Empire to not
How loyal you could be.
decide that you should be arrested.
Yeah. Where do we know that shit is going down. I forgot. I had to even though I just saw Rogue One, I had to remind myself that Bail gets to Yavin first before he goes to Alderaan. I wasn't sure what this episode was going to be until I realized, oh, okay. At some point, he does escape. But to what end?
No, I think he's in the Senate to the end.
But he shows up on Yavin in Rogue One.
Yeah, but so do a lot of senators.
I think he's just visiting, yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole meeting with a whole bunch of senators that are talking about, and that's a key scene because the senator's like, I can't risk it, she might not be right. So they're slipping out on their free time to go into Yavin and trying to figure out stuff with Mon Mothma. I don't know who exactly is partisan and who's not, but I think at that time of Rogue One, it's still only Mon Mothma. Because the Imperial Senate hasn't been swept away yet. That doesn't happen until A New Hope. So
right, a week later after Rogue One, right? It's so crazy. So essentially, but Bail is allowed to visit Yavin, as opposed to being on house arrest on Coruscant.
Why would he be house arrested? What is he? He hasn't done anything that they know of. Right?
I mean, all he did is, he facilitated Mon Mothma talking,
right?
But I don't know.
Wouldn't that be a concern?
I don't think they could make the argument.
Using a law that the Emperor established, he didn't do it illegally. He didn't do it
and he explained it first,
and he explained it fully. He quoted the law, the whole thing. I mean, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you didn't. I was I was done.
So there is an excellent book called The Mask of Fear. It just came out. By Alexander Freed, and it's part of a 3-book series, but only the first book came out last month. But it's Bail Organa, it's about Mon Mothma, and kind of about Saw, but this is early days of the Empire taking over, and so this is them being monitored by Imperial spies. This is them getting arrested and having to figure out who they can trust and these details. So if you do want to jump deeper into that, so it makes sense that he's able to slip out, because by this time they know roughly what they're up against and have people or connections that they can kind of use to try and do countermeasures in order to survive. But it's a really good book if you're interested in reading it. Especially if you like the politics of course.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I used to read Star Wars books when I was a kid, and then I stopped for a long time. And now I don't really read too many books. Andor might get me back into reading Star Wars books. That's the power of Andor.
Yeah. Listen, and if you want to list, let me know. I mean, Catalyst, right? That's Galen Erso's story. Rebel Rising, that's Jen Erso's story that leads up to Rogue One. And this book series, the first one is out. There'll be 2 more coming. Are going to be great reads for any Andor fans.
Okay. All right. Cool. How do we talk about this episode then? This is all this escape of Mon Mothma from Coruscant, but it leads up to the fact that she isn't going to run away just yet. She has to make the speech, then run away, but then has to decide which team of people she's going to go with.
Wait, she doesn't decide. Does she decide? I thought she's told she's going to go with Gold Squadron.
So she
not Gold Squadron, the first before that.
because Bale has his people, and then Luthen
Oh,
said,
gotcha. Not leave the
those people,
Senate. She's going to leave the Senate chamber with. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Sorry,
not not
yeah.
not
Yes.
that. But
Sorry. Got it. My bad. My
she's gonna
mistake.
leave with Gold Squadron, and then they're gonna get
She's got to get out of the building
and
first.
then she's gonna get on the Ghost.
I like that moment where she grabs Bale and says, "Do you know them?" You know, and he's like, well, "No, I can't."
Yeah.
And that's when I went, okay, she's gonna trust Cassian because if Bale's like, "Oh yeah, these are my homies," and she's like, "Oh my gosh, now how do I decide?"
Yeah.
But I thought that made
it's so interesting when Luthen is talking to her about it. Luthen is like a little manic. Like he's freaking out. Right. He's on the Senate. He's at the Senate without his wig on, which is crazy.
Yes.
He have his disguise
in
on.
his Batman outfit.
Yeah, he's in his Batman outfit, right? He's saying, "I don't know everything, but I know what I owe you," right? And then she's
pissed at him because of the guy that he's working. Sorry, I didn't
Erskine Semot.
Yeah, Erskine.
Yes. So she's already pissed at him, and then he's like, and sorry, resume.
Yeah, she's like, "Yeah, oh yeah, you're the only one I can trust," right? And he's like, "Well, not all the time, but right now, yes." Right.
Well, before that, she leaves the chambers to practice her speech because she finds the bug in her chambers.
And then she destroys it, which bad call, Mon Mothma. Like, just put it outside.
Right.
Don't
destroy it.
Yeah.
Just move it, you know?
Yeah.
But I like how even, Luthen recognizes, listen, and I also love that she's usually wearing white and he's wearing black. He's like, I'm the Dark Knight. I'm the savior of the city.
I'm Luthen.
He realizes, she's the White Knight. She is the face. She is the most important piece of the rebellion, and he's willing to break all of his protocols. Remember how pissed he was at Cassian when Cassian showed up? He's willing to break all of those protocols. He's willing to burn his asset that's upstairs next to her if that'll get her to trust him, because the rebellion needs her to survive. And I don't think this rebellion survives. The rebellion works if she dies, that night. If she gets into the car to drive, rebellion's done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because her escape is also another item of hope, that this horrible massacre happened and it's terrible. And she spoke out and then she made it out, and all those things need to happen.
That's what the Ghost Crew said. Bring up Rebels. That's what the Ghost Crew says. Is they're like, I can't believe she's still breathing.
Yeah.
So the fact that she got on and said, it's Palpatine, and named Palpatine, and is able to escape, brings hope to, I think Zeb is the one that says it. I can't believe she got out of there with that, right?
And I love how they handle that, because I rail against fan service cameos. Oh, I just hate them. I don't bring other stuff. Don't bring other people in here. We got plenty to do with the people we have. So I just thought it was really respectful how they made all the space in the world for Rebels, but without hitting you over the head with it. And the Ghost Crew we don't see them. We don't see the ship. It's not named, but it doesn't step on what they did either. I thought that is exactly how you do it. I was like, great job.
And I think it speaks to how generally good-hearted Rebels fans in particular are, that they're all like, yeah, man, that was, you
I don't know what Rebel fans are in your comments, but mine are no,
maybe all the Rebels
to see the Ghost Crew.
All the cosplayers in our group chat are like, we liked it. So I feel like they, first of all, you're gonna have Tony Gilroy and Dan Gilroy not write Mon Mothma's speech. You're gonna tell them they have to do exactly what was in Rebels. That would be crazy. That'd be like telling J.J. Abrams, don't do a lens flare in this shot. But the idea that I think they honored the spirit of the speech while Andorifying it, right? That was Rebels. This is Andor. And also the Ghost doesn't pick her up from Coruscant. She goes with Gold Squadron, which is what they say. Yep. And then the Ghost is refueling them, and then a bunch of stuff happens, and then she has to get a ride on the Ghost, right? So there was a part of me that was like, I would have liked to see the Ghost landing on Yavin. When it was at the very, very end of episode 9, and he was standing in the landing zone, and they were like, you have to get out of there. I was like, oh, is the Ghost gonna land? But then when it didn't, I wasn't like, I would have liked that episode more if I saw a glimpse of the Ghost, because I know that she goes to the Gold Squadron and then the Ghost. And I can watch that on Rebels season 3
on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I could watch it on Disney Plus, right? And I did right after, right? So I know that that's what happens. And people are saying like, I can't believe someone wrote an article that was like, I can't believe we haven't talked about Leia. And I'm like, there is a moment where Bale is talking about why he can't go yet. And he could say like, I have to protect my daughter, right? He could have said that. Or when Mon's like, be careful, like, you know, think about Leia, be careful. Like they could have, but it's none of this felt any less for not seeing any of that. There was no point where I was at the end and I was like, dang, 9.5 because they didn't show the Ghost. Like going into it, but then exiting it, I was like, no, I didn't actually need that at all.
Yeah. We don't need to be spoon-fed with Andor also, right? And part of cameos is kind of spoon-feeding. Like, remember, these people occupy the same space. Pun intended. But like, you know, we don't need
They even
that.
shoot the cameos different where it's a weird hero shot that doesn't fit in with the narrative of the thing. Yeah.
Right.
I literally imagine if you saw Zeb in this episode.
That's all anyone would be talking about. It'd be this giant distraction.
Yeah.
And not that the recasting of Jimmy Smits, I think enough people were distracted by that, which is insane. I think we should recast more. Like I'm the king of recast
1000%.
island. So like if we honor the character, let's continue the character, you know, no shame to actors are great. So like anytime they do any of that stuff touching other things, the people just get so worked up and they look over here when we need to be looking here. That's my big thing.
That makes me sad because I was like, it's because Rebels fans are so good-hearted that we're not mad. But now that I know,
it's just your people.
Maybe I just run with a very tight group of very, very nice Rebels
very
fans.
Cool Rebels fans.
No, they're cool. I need to knock some sense into everybody else.
No, everyone's cool. Everyone wants to see their favorite, and I do understand that people love their favorites. I still just say, had the Ghost landed, and just to echo what you said, that would have been cool. And you would have been like, yes, awesome, great, oh yay. But a lot of people have been like, that wasn't enough.
Yeah,
I mean. Imagine a George Lucas special edition where it cuts to a younger Luke Skywalker watching the Senate footage, and then cuts to Leia and Alderaan watching the Senate footage. I don't know, Yoda and Dagobah watching
Jar Jar, the whole thing,
like all the whole cast that we know and love that we don't need in this, watching the Senate footage. For some reason, they're watching C-SPAN, like. These kids and every character in the universe watching C-SPAN at that moment for Senate footage. We didn't need that. It's okay. And I also think it fits within kind of the wheels that have been working in Andor, that there's a publicly facing rebellion and a private one. That Andor is a part of the private, Mon Mothma is part of the public. That like, does she refilm her speech in Rebels? Is that the difference?
No,
she gives a speech
to get it
from
out.
The ship.
She gives a speech at the end.
Squadron ship.
Yeah. People were getting confused, and I was like, "Hold on, I'm actually you."
Yeah.
She gives a second speech, which we have not seen, but we hear Draven say she's going to give a speech. Do you want to watch it from my office? And Cassian's like, "I'm good."
Because that one speech isn't enough. You have to have a choreographed.
Because then she gives it's the declaration of the rebellion essentially, where she's like, gives the call and is like, "I'm doing this. We're doing this. Are you guys with me?" And then all the shit.
She goes ham. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I do love the little protest on Coruscant where the guy's trying to shut it down, and he's like, "Why is this door locked?" And like,
"Oh, that was so funny."
Why it hasn't been locked? Yeah, we fixed it. Yeah, it's supposed to be locked. Well, then what's the key? Like, I mean, you have to go get it.
It's malicious compliance. It's
I was going to say,
the law says it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be, the door's supposed to be locked and the key is supposed to be in the security office. What? We're doing our jobs. So.
And it's so clear after. First of all, I love the tear the shit out of that place. I love that line. And then she does, like, the speech is so good. She delivers it beautifully. And then after, when they get to the safe house and she says to Cassian, "I don't know how to thank you," and he says, "Make it worth it." Like, that's such a good like powerful little moment. And it's also, upon a rewatch, so clear that Cassian wants to leave the rebellion, that he's already made that decision. Because when he says "make it worth it," he's like giving it to her, right? Like, make it worth it. I'm not gonna be there though. Like, goodbye. I won't be there to see it. Here's the ball. And then all the rest of it happens.
Yeah.
And Jen,
let's get to the end.
Jen has to leave. Yeah.
So that's the Bix. He's like, "Let's go have our little happy ever after," right?
Yeah.
And Bix is like, "Yeah, I'm just listening.
I felt so dumb rewatching it because her face, it's so obvious.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so
I
obvious.
did not for a moment think she was going to do that the first time I watched it, but the second time I was,
Really?
I knew it
not-
right away.
I'm
Oh,
like,
I've been dumped enough in my youth that I know when I'm
I'm-
being dumped. Like it's like,
Listen,
oh, she's gonna
I'm-
leave.
I'm a hopeless romantic with like a lot of like delusionally hopeless. So that's why I was like, that's why I didn't notice. I was just so
Oh, that's sweet. I love that for you.
Does she
I don't. It hasn't worked out well for me in my life.
does she drug him? Is that
No.
that I read?
No,
Like,
I think
do
she
they
gave
drink
him-
tea or
No,
something?
because no, she
Even sleep. It's like sleepy time.
Playa says to him earlier when they're at the safe house, you must be exhausted.
No.
So that's where I connected that. Like he has just been like going nonstop.
He just had a
Gorman,
fight.
Coruscant.
He was bleeding.
Yeah.
He's running
Yeah.
through Coruscant.
Yeah.
He's having adrenaline.
He's
Like
leaving the rebellion. He's leaving the rebel. He's gonna have the best night's sleep he's had in 6 years, you
Yeah.
know?
And she gives him tea, but I think it's like
Wow.
like sleepy time tea.
Okay.
She gave him
Yeah.
like a 5 milligrams of
valerian
melatonin.
root.
Yeah, she's not
Oh,
knocking
that's
that.
interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't even think for a second
Oh.
that she was drugging him. I just thought he's reached his finish line, you know?
Yeah.
Haven't
That
any
man
of
is
us
just
happened that to you?
tired.
Like you finally do like a big project or work or something and some deadline you hit, and then that night you just
Yeah.
sleep like
Just sleep for
12
2 days.
hours.
Yeah, when I come back from San Diego Comic-Con, I sleep for like 3 days.
That's why he had the post San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And it's
sleep.
exactly the same as fighting a rebellion.
We also
to
find
know.
out that Will and his girlfriend are alive at that safe house, which I thought
Yeah.
was wild to me. But okay.
For now.
And that's the
the way,
excuse
if-
they give to not so he's not the one taking Mon Mothma. Sorry. Sorry, Choco.
Mm,
Oh, I was just
okay.
gonna say. By the way, I still am bitter because had she just driven the car when she was supposed to, Cinta wouldn't have died, and it still hurts me.
Oh, well, I
Oh,
blame it more on the
Cinta.
other guy that had a blaster when he was told not
No,
to.
Yeah.
that's true. That's true. But I just it's not her fault. But like I still am like,
But at least that
and
guy,
she wandered off to
redeemed
help
himself.
an old lady.
Yeah. Sorry, real quick. Mon Mothma's driver, was he coming up to apprehend them or to save them? Some people are kind of split
save
on
them.
that.
Neither. I
He
think
was
he's
not
just an
saving nobody.
No.
He was-
He's trying to find out what's going on. Doesn't he say to the other driver parked in the valet lot that he's just like, what's going on up there? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
And then he like goes to find out because I don't think he got any word on his little communication device or anything.
No, because that's what they said. She said, I'm gonna get him replaced, and they said he might replace him with someone smart. Like, I think he's just an idiot.
Yeah.
He's
Like,
just an idiot. And he's
he
just
just wants
parked
to
there
see what's
all
going on.
night.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so he maybe had to go to the bathroom. Like
Yeah.
him trying to save her, I don't
He's-
think is in
No.
one of the
Or
options.
would
No
have.
way.
That's the thing about Cyril and him. It's like people are like, well, what happens to this untapped potential? It's like, well, you squandered it.
No,
Like,
he's on the phone with the ISB. Like
yeah, he's
checking-
literally
yeah.
talking to them.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I read it as he was getting big for his britches. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was tired of sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah.
And he's like, you know what? I'm gonna go see what's going on because nobody's telling me nothing.
And that's
Right.
what you
And
get.
then
Totally.
and then after Bix leaves, Andor runs, sure. And at the end, he decides to ignite KX, right? Like he restarts KX to
The
K2,
Frankenstein moment. Yeah.
whether he's going to be friend or foe. And it is the K2 that we know from Rogue One. And that's where
It's
it
beautiful.
ends.
It's beautiful too because it's so emotional. Like I was crying when Bix left, you know, like that's his one, you know, his kind of North Star, you know. And then he's alone, he's still with the rebellion, which he isn't really into. And then right away he gets his old pal, you know, he has a new friend. So he's not alone anymore. Like it's a nice beat to end after that
And
that heartbreak of him and Bix being apart.
and it's
Yeah.
like that. You understand why his bond is so strong with K2 as well.
Yes.
Like that
Totally.
idea of like he just lost her, and then we get K2. I like the emotional whiplash of like crying
Mhm.
because Bix ends it with like it was bad. The voiceover of Bix doing that message with him running,
and the
and, like,
music.
his
looking
face
for
when he's
yeah.
running is like so panicked, and it was so sad. And then to immediately then meet my son K2SO, it was almost like they knew, like,
Yeah.
you're gonna be so wrecked from this. Like, we're gonna give you a little
Yes.
here's my candy. We're gonna look. We got you a present. Here's your offering. It's K2SO saying, if I've offended you, I apologize. But please, if I haven't, don't point that bus, like point that somewhere else.
Yeah. I think it ties in with having the people worth fighting for.
Yeah.
I don't
A
know.
girl worth
Cyril doesn't
fighting
have that.
for. And Bix, I mean, I just gotta say it. Audrey is maybe the most beautiful woman in the world.
Truly.
And like, and then being the person she is in the show, who's her ride or die, who is that supportive, who is that caring for him. If she left, I'd just be done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
like you can't replace that with anything but a wisecracking robot buddy. That you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm glad
And
she
this-
didn't die.
I'm glad you didn't. I was very surprised and very pleased how they handled that.
I have more to say, but I know Janet needs to leave, so I will stay and keep talking. Choco, if you want to keep talking, I won't.
I'm
I won't
sorry,
go on too
I
long.
can't stay longer. This has been tremendous. I could talk about this show all night, and I'll leave with that. I'm going to be very interested to see how the rest of the people that aren't in Rogue One die. And we never got to Dedra really. I just want to say that Dedra, Denise Goff said and the panel in Celebration that she's much. I know had sympathy for her in season 1, like A Woman in a Man's World, like go girl boss. But in this season, she is going to be much darker. I still have sympathy for her. I think she's like unfairly going to be the fall guy for Gorman, and I've been kind of waiting to not have sympathy for her, and I still do. So that's the one I'm really the most curious to see what's going to happen in this next arc. Because as someone who grew up in circumstances that were not her fault, and to get to where she is, I don't know. I think she got dealt a rough. Oh, she's gonna get blamed for Gorman. Maybe executed. Maybe
Is she gonna find Axis?
Oh, a Dedra Luthen showdown?
Huh.
But she's not on the Axis test.
I mean, if you're gonna
she can get demoted.
Or demoted.
And put into a desk
job?
Demoted
back down to Axis.
She's gonna work for the guy who used to work for her, who is on Axis. Because they brought those guys in, him and Lonnie, talking about Axis. But I don't know if we're gonna wrap up every single thread, like the Maya Pei people and that TIE fighter. Is that gonna? Did we ever?
I think that purpose was just to show how disorganized it was and show how Cassian is now a spy behind.
Okay, but they did
spend.
Lines.
They spent a lot
3 episodes on it. They didn't spend one scene on it. They spent 3 episodes on it. Yeah. So, I don't know. I would like to see that, be worth it.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see what happens to Dedra. And I'm so sad the show is over next week. That's just that seems a little unfair. But I know why they're wrapping it. I think it's because we want to get it in time for Emmy voting, which is only in the month of May. So.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the clue I'm getting from all the kind of awards push we're seeing. So. But then started in March. But or they wanted to start it with Celebration. Who knows?
They're trying not to overlap it with Marvel stuff.
Yeah, it's tough, right? Like we're as fans, but it did, like with Thunderbolts launched in the middle.
But not Daredevil. Like Daredevil stopped and Andor started right away.
Of course, that's true. That's true.
I know that you got to get going, Jen. Real quick before you do, can you tell us where we can find you? What do you got coming up? Anything you want to plug?
TikTok and YouTube are my big ones. It's at Jen Markham, JenMarkham. I don't think I have anything coming up. I'm going to the Paley Museum in New York is doing an evening with Tony Gilroy on Tuesday. They're going to show us the episodes early, and then he's going to come out and talk to us, which is super cool. I would say tickets are still available, but I think they're all sold out. But I think they are selling ticket in New York City, to watch it in a closed caption room, like a closed circuit TV room. I think those still tickets are there if you live in New York. That's super exciting to see another episode on the big screen. So
you'll get to see Wilman die before Dimithri.
Oof.
Well, I don't. Actually, I think they're only going to show us the first one of 10, and then he's going to come out and talk, which I don't understand. So we're sitting there, they're going to show us 10. He's going to talk, but meanwhile, I'm like, they're dropping on Disney Plus right now.
You're like watching it on your phone while he's talking.
So I'm going to be curious to see how that goes down. But I'll probably make some content about that. So that's the only thing cool I have coming up.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, thanks so much for coming on this.
Thank you for having me. This was a huge honor. Sara, Choco, Brandon, I've loved this, and I'm sad I have to go, but I have to go.
It's all right.
So,
Thanks for
I'll see
coming.
you next time.
See ya.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
I was gonna bizarrely make a Yellow Jackets reference. So in Yellow Jackets, there's a scene, it's not a spoiler because it doesn't really have anything to do with anything, where they're like hallucinating and there's a chalkboard, and the line behind them on the chalkboard is, of all the ways to lose someone, death is the kindest. And I was thinking about that so much watching this scene with Bix, of like, everybody thought Bix was gonna die.
Yeah.
Right? He's got the connection with Jen. He's got, all the stuff in Rogue One. Bix is gonna die, Bix is gonna die, Bix is gonna die. And the idea that Bix doesn't die, but that somehow this is like, for me, emotionally worse. Right?
Yeah.
The idea that she and we've talked about it all season of like, what do you sacrifice for the rebellion? What do you have to give up for the rebellion? Mon Mothma gave up her daughter and her family and her life in the Senate. And for Bix to give up Cassian, to give up love, she's like, when she's like, I'm choosing the rebellion, right? That was bad enough. And then we got him running, and then they had to twist the knife with like, when it's all over and when we've won, I'll find you. And I was like, you will not. I'm so sorry. You're not gonna do that. And I think it's been interesting to listen to the conversation of people.
Stop trying to make me cry, man.
I'm so sorry. I
It's getting misty.
is so sad. And like her delivery of it and the way that they chose to shoot that with like straight on her face. And when she's having that conversation with Cassian and he says, the only thing special about me is luck. I've overplayed my hand. He says, nothing is worth more than this. And they have my favorite I love you, I know moment, where he says, nothing is worth more than this, which is like, that's all that Bix has wanted, right? This whole time, right? Is this life, right? To say, to get that from Cassian. And well, it's not all Bix has wanted, but like, this is all that we've wanted for them, right? We want them to leave, right? And live happily ever after. That is that's what we want as the audience watching them. And Cassian says, I mean it. And she says, I know. And I was like, that he means it. And that's why you have to leave. Because right now, you mean more than the rebellion. And you can't. And it's so sad. Like, I can't even, like, it was so sad. I was bawling. And it was like this idea of like, if she would have died, right, that would have been incredibly sad, right? Because we love her and we don't want her to die. But the idea of her, like, and there's been people that are like, what if we get a ABY, right? What if we get her?
I want that. I need that now. I heard.
What if we get a memorial to Cassian? What if she's putting flowers at him, like, here's the people that died on scare for the this idea of like, having her alive means we have to reckon with the fact that Bix is one day going to find out about what happened on Scarif.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting. People are doing, I think it's Bedazzler that was talking about like, people are doing a lot of revisionist history of the Jin Cassian relationship. Like, there was definitely something at least that you could read specifically romantic into it. There's a couple of scenes where they're gazing into each other's eyes. And people are like, oh, he was thinking about Bix when he was hugging Cassian on the beach. And I was like, I think you should rewatch
That's
Rogue
weird.
One.
No.
I don't think so. And also, you can have two different feelings for two different women at the same, like, you can have, obviously, Bix is the love of his life, and you can still forge a strong connection with Jin. Like, it doesn't have to be one or the other.
Yeah.
You could have the love that you lost, and then this person that's bringing hope into your life. Like, it's not a mutually exclusive. Yeah, someone's like, oh yeah, now we know what he was thinking about on that beach when he was hugging Jin. And I was like,
that's like,
no, that's
no,
weird.
I don't know.
But yeah, it was tough. And it broke my heart.
I
but
remember,
this, like, we have to get him to someone who has nothing to lose. And I saw someone go on a tirade on Instagram about how, like, Cassian says he's lost everything, and it's like, dude, you had a steady girlfriend up until a year ago. What do you mean? Like, you were living happily on Yavin. And I was like, he might have a rough year ahead of him.
Yeah. I mean, I also think that at this point, I mean, does he need to lose more to become the Cassian that he is in Rogue One?
I
Does he
think so.
need?
I think there's going to be a little bit more character kind of regression because
Yeah.
you know he was. I mean, he killed a fellow like rebellion person
Yeah.
at the beginning of Rogue One. You know what I mean? So that's a further
For the
point
greater
than I think where we're
purpose.
at
He
here.
didn't do it out
Yeah,
For
of
the
but
greater purpose, but
yeah.
you know, the harshest thing we've seen from him is killing someone because he saw Bix's face, but that was an Imperial. You
Yeah.
know, and we haven't seen him have to do friendly fire yet.
close loose ends
Yeah.
because of
And
that.
I feel like this is the beginning of his man with nothing to lose arc, right? Like that we have to get to where, and I think I saw someone, I don't know where the quote came from, but someone was like, when we find him again, it's essentially like a frat house with K2SO, like that little treehouse that they're in. Like the depression of Bix leaving, I think, is gonna do a lot to him. But yeah, I think he has to. There's got to be something
Yeah,
more that.
I'm
I
trying to
mean, look at
figure
what
out
happened to
what.
Han Solo after he lost Kira. You know,
Yeah, I just rewatched Solo yesterday. Um, I like Solo. It's not how much I like
that's
Rogue
fun.
One. Yeah, it was fine. I think people love hating on like things that like just aren't what they expected, and it's like, but that's what these adaptations, these movies, and these expansions are supposed to do is like
Yeah, but
challenge your expectations.
you also have to look at the people that, like, Jimmy Smits had a scheduling issue that forced him to be recast, and people are like, Disney doesn't care about Star, So if you made someone Han Solo, no matter how good he did, it was always good. I think it was always going to have that
Yeah.
reaction, especially putting you know,
Right.
the Disney of it all in there.
I mean, I feel like next week when we do this episode for the finale, I think next week we're gonna have Tate and JJ on the show. We'll be able to kind of wrap things up and kind of I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen in this. I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna definitely cry. I remember crying at the end of season 1 when somebody online said that Cassian will never have a brick made for him. That like
Scoop up a little bit of the ashes of Scarif. He could be mixed in there. That was out of line. I'm so sorry.
Not only that, Browso will never have a brick,
Yeah.
and B2 is still there waiting for Cassian.
by the way, I like to believe
in my mind,
Bix went back.
Bix got B2.
Yeah.
The two of them. I think it's interesting that people are speculating if she's pregnant or not. I hope not. I don't like that. I don't like that idea. It's like just a woman can't hold her hands in front of her like that, I guess, without speculation. I also think it's wild that people are like, Andor is amazing, absolutely, but that people are like, just give Tony Gilroy the keys to Star Wars. I'm like, I think you're entirely missing the point about why Andor is good.
Yeah.
Like, if someone makes a good TV show, that doesn't mean they need to be in charge of the franchise.
It's a different thing.
What are
Yeah.
you talking about?
It's not that job, man. I had someone who was like railing about the sequel trilogy and how Kathleen Kennedy wrote all the characters. So it's like she didn't write the sequel trilogy. Like, you do know that, right? And then they're like, yes, you did. It's like, no, like,
But
it was Lawrence Kasdan and J.J. Abrams.
But
But he
Choco,
was
how
convinced.
does woman get protagonist if not written by woman?
Right? It is. I was like, okay, if you think the executive producer does everything, then what do you think of the Mandalorian? You know, which she's EP on, or
Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park, or
Yeah.
or Back to the Future, and they're like, oh, so she got 2 good movies and like a TV show. I was like,
Haters are gonna hate.
my brother in Space Christ Obi-Wan Kenobi. Go look at her resume. if you think she's responsible for everything, she's the greatest mind in film history.
Yeah, haters are gonna hate, and I would hope that like people come out of Andor with a little bit more uh uh media literacy out of it, like, but who's to say?
No.
I
The
think
people who lack media literacy stopped watching Andor.
that's fair.
Or they're posting on threads. I've seen some crazy takes, but I think if I may, for a moment,
You may.
use this moment for a quick little history detour. There are two things. One of the things I learned about, I have a bad habit of, I love the Ringerverse, and I always listen to the Midnight Boys. They do their midnight reactions, and then they do a deep dive on House of R, and their Andor one this week is 4 hours long. So I try not to listen to it before I do this podcast, because I don't want to just be like, I heard on the Ringerverse. But I listened to like a little bit of it, and someone wrote in it about an event that I had no idea it existed. So I am, because they said it, I am gonna like just be like, you guys can look this up. Called the Tlatelolco massacre that was in Mexico City. So it was something that happened in the 80s, where it was literally like a bunch of student protesters, and it's this. So I know that Tony Gilroy has said, like, you know, there's a lot of things like this have happened, but it's interesting, like they pinned them in, a government sniper started it off, and then like hundreds of people were killed. So this idea that like it doesn't need to be directly written about a thing to parallel a thing, right? The fact that he hasn't come out and say like the Tlatelolco massacre is what I based it on, the fact that he hasn't said that, and yet there's an event that's almost the exact same sequence of events, just shows how much history like repeats itself and echoes itself. So like as you're analyzing something, doesn't need to be based on it to have a parallel. But then also people were bringing up the Poland, when Poland was invaded by the Nazis in World War II, that they did like a final radio broadcast.
Yeah.
What I will say is that I did look that up in the transcript of it, and it's not at all like it's not like, oh, they did it, but it is very like, this is our last radio communication. The German troops are into Warsaw, right? Keep fighting, right? Like Poland is not like long live Poland. Like Poland's not yet lost. So that made my little Polish heart happy. I'm incredibly Polish, so always happy to bring up Poland. But that idea of sending out a final broadcast, and of course the tragedy of the Gormans is that they
no
can't.
one was on the other end.
No one was on the other end, right? They were just shouting into it. But is there no one that can help us like tell the story? Like going from somebody help us to like somebody tell someone what happened here, right? And Cassian being the messenger that has to tell people what happened is it was tough. It was, I mean, it was a rough watch for sure. Episode 8, it was very emotionally draining, especially with the historical parallels and stuff. But that idea of there's so much to pull from and look at, and I think if you're a history nerd, right, it's a great time to look at revolutions and things. Let it inspire you to do some research.
Yeah.
After hearing that, I'm gonna A, look into that. B, check out the Ringer, because I'm like, what, a diverse role-playing group? That's cool.
Dude, the Ringers, I love them.
I'm not familiar with them.
I just pull them up, so I'm gonna dive into this later. But
I also want to shout out.
But
YouTuber Pete Peppers does little 20 to 30 minute breakdowns of Andor that I do refresh by watching before this. So I do want to shout out Pete Peppers, who doesn't know me, but Pete Peppers, thank you for your breakdowns.
Okay. No, I was just gonna say Diego Luna is like the producer on the show, and he is from Mexico City. He's for sure heard of it because he would have been alive during it.
And the government came out and was like, that was us, sorry. Like not immediately after. It was like 20 years later that they were like, we finally are admitting that it was us, that we shot the first shot. So that was a thing I did not know about. They talked about on the Ringerverse, they were like, it's kind of like a lot of people that didn't know about the Tulsa race massacre like until they
Yeah.
watched Watchmen, and then it was plotline in Watchmen. So
and
is
in
this,
Lovecraft Country, which came out
Yeah.
like right at the same time. It was so weird, but
yeah, it was so
Interesting.
I literally never heard of this before.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit less embarrassing when it's not exactly US history like Tulsa. But it was 1968. And yeah, the snipers the government documents made public in 2000 suggest that snipers were employed by the government.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that started. So yeah, this idea that it is an analog, it can be an analog to many historical things. And
Because
I think
they learn from each other. Kind of like, and this is like the historical fact is that both like Germany and South Africa looked at America to see how the subjugation of their our people could inspire them to make similar but different, build upon those choices, because fascism is fascism is fascism. So the segregation and the subjugation of people here in America kind of inspired other people to do similar but different things.
Yeah, and I think I was going to make a TikTok about this, but when I was listening to one of the recaps they did, they were talking about they got into an off debate about like who's the biggest like who had the most impact on the rebellion, like is it, and they got into like a Cassian versus Han Solo, like who's had more impact. And I was like, I think the interesting thing, because they're like, well, Han Solo would have never been able to go in and help them blow up the Death Star if Cassian didn't get the plans. And I was like, I think that's your web theory, right? Is like, and then someone on TikTok, I think was like, I think I was on Threads, they were like, if Bix didn't leave Cassian, they never get the Death Star plans. Yeah. I was like, well, it would never happen that exact way, right? And that's the whole thing, is like, it's a waterfall, right? Like all these things happen a certain way to set up this specific history, right? Like if this doesn't happen, then this doesn't happen, then this doesn't happen, then this doesn't happen. Like that's, but you might be right? Is Cassian the only person that could have gotten Jyn Erso that is like,
it's the pebbles in the pond theory, right? How many rocks you have to throw in a pond before it diverts path, and it's why I do look at it as the cosmic force, because it's a I look at the force as a plant, right? Because it's about life, right? It's the energy field of life. A plant is going to grow towards the sun, and if you try to put something away to block it, it'll grow around that thing, and so it'll try to find a way. Eventually, you can die or whatever. But I feel like that's why I liked the force scene in the first episode, because it's like these are all people that are being used so that Luke can stand on their shoulders. But if they choose a different path, they can absolutely do that. We'll have to find a different way to get there. We'll try, but
it could be happen now though, or it could happen in 500 years. Like Anakin going to the dark side, that causes problems that are then solved 70 years later. It's like, to say that if Andor was taken out of the equation, someone else would have picked up Jyn, gone to Scarif, done the same stuff. No, I don't think so. Also, yeah. I think that Andor, the rebellion is built on hope. He learns that from the hotel guy. He passes it to Jyn. Jyn says it, and you would see it as a failure, but it does inspire some of the other troops to come to Scarif with them. Otherwise, it would have been a 5-person troop.
Yeah,
going to Scarif, but no. And then part of that troop is Melshi, who
we see him.
We
shows
see him.
Up, yeah.
My boys are getting together.
And who's to say? Like, I'm sure Melshi is going to be more of a thing in these next upcoming episodes to finish.
If we're saying that Cassian's house, now that Bix is left, is a frat house, like Melshi's got to be in there, right?
Maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm so. This show and these episodes do make me emotional and whatnot, and I think about Rogue One, and that made me emotional. And it's this idea that, like, yeah, we're not going to be able to change Cassian's ending, but we're going to be able to see the effect that he has on others, which maybe, if we take it to real life, inspires us to realize that, like, the idea that if you go into the past and you change something, it ripples into now, right? So like present becomes completely different. But the idea that like we can affect the present to ripple towards the future is also the same idea. That like our actions now in this brick and this web help or hurt things, right? So it's interesting. I Wikipedia'd Switzerland during World War II right now, and I want to do a Wikipedia deep dive because growing up, I used to be like, oh, Switzerland was neutral, and that's like a good thing because like they didn't fall to the Nazis. It's like, yeah, but you were neutral and you didn't join the Allies. So like they denied refugees. And then I think of like the shame that like Americans we put on France, and France got taken over, but France kept the resistance up and was such a big part of the war effort in World War II. France never stopped fighting, and we could talk shit on France, but it's like no,
Kept them fighting on two fronts, and that's what, yeah.
So I think that's important to also look at. That's all real world stuff. We can become a history podcast another time, but
I mean, I do want to hear Sarah talk more about history because I love the parallels personally.
No, I do too.
The irony is I'm not a history teacher. I am an English teacher, but I work very closely with my history teacher pal. So it's very, we do a lot of like cross-curricular stuff. And for me, that's what Andor is, especially in these episodes. Like the Gorman Massacre is very like, talk about like an English cross-curricular with your history teacher stuff of like, you analyze the characters that are in it while also analyzing, right, the parallels. And I think that's the thing that was a bee in my bonnet this week, if I may, is the people that were like, it's hard not to think about Gaza. And I was like, it is. And then the people were like, it was right before that. And I'm like, oh, I mean, literally no, but because historically, but also I was looking to see what Tony Gilroy specifically said. And he was like, sadly, you have a lot of genocides to pick from. But the parallel of like people murmuring as soon as Mon Mothma says genocide, people are like, oh, and I'm like,
She said the word. Yeah.
But, yeah, like she said the thing, right? But even to know when you're writing this in 2022, if a politician gets on a floor in front of the Senate and says this was a genocide on the people of Gorman, that's going to make everyone go, ooh, and clutch their pearls. You don't need to be in 2025 to know that because that happened in 100 times before.
We're talking about colonization. We're talking about fascism. We're talking about genocide. There is a quaint timelessness, that we can all get together and be, it reminds me of when
it is unfortunately timeless. The Gorman Massacre is unfortunately timeless. Yeah.
I will say in 2025, there's a higher likelihood of being arrested immediately after saying such on the Senate floor.
Yeah.
As of May 10th, 2025. Mm-hmm. I want to thank you guys so much for coming on this show. Jen, left a little early, but Jen is always and continues to be amazing. You guys are amazing as well, and I'm very happy that we have this show, this after show, to be able to talk about this and just talk about it with you guys. So, thank you for being part of this all.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Always.
I'm happy. I broke out. This is my first time I've ever worn my K2 shirt for this special occasion.
I didn't know you had a K2 shirt. Okay.
I just got it from Only Hope Supply. I have like 8 of their t-shirts.
I need more.
The only problem is it has like a big back design, and I'm usually wearing a backpack. So like,
yeah.
Also, they just did a Skeleton Crew shirt, and I'm like,
oh yeah. I love the fact that Star Wars can create different things, and like somebody brought up that like, oh, like you have childish shows taking place in the same universe as such things that are adult, right? And that like, oh, like how does that work?
Yeah, just like life.
That's like life, right? People have fun at the same time that horrible things are happening because everybody's having a different story, right? For better or for worse, right? Children are still children,
Where doesn't that happen though? I mean, I've seen people say that, but I'm like, listen, if you read a Superman comic and then a Batman comic, there's going to be very different tonally, and if you can read Deadpool and you can read Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur,
Right.
they're gonna be they're a little bit different from one another.
Right.
This
even
is
even looking at things that are generally geared towards adults, like horror movies. There's horror movies that like I am scared of, and then there's ones that I'm like, oh, this one's kind of campy and fun, right? Like there's levels to everything. And there was someone that was talking about like it was like it was like 11 comment thread. So I was like, I'm not gonna start a conversation with you because I feel like it'll take all night. But they were talking about like if this is going to have the same effect on Star Wars that like Watchmen had, where like Watchmen was such a success, they're like, oh, I guess people want grim, dark stuff now. So let's make everything grim and dark for a while until we get whimsy back into comic books like years and years later. And I was like, I think
no.
reading Andor as grim and dark is a very surface level way to view it, right? If you're like, Andor is so dark just because there's like
Bad stuff.
themes,
I
it's like
find it very hopeful.
they're asking you to think deeper about stuff, and then you're like, that's too adult. And I'm like, is that because you don't like to think deeply about it? Like, and there's the, oh my god, I'm bringing it up to history again. There's the Uruguayan rugby team that crashed in the Andes is a story that a lot of people are like, this is about cannibalism. And I'm like, if though you thought more deeply about it and read more about it, you would find it to be a story about the triumph of the human spirit, right? And if you're looking at Andor really deeply, I mean, you can come to different, nobody's interpretation is right or wrong. Well, some people, some are wrong, but this concept of like, it's really about like the things that you have to give up for a brighter future, right? And the things that you do on the hope that someone is listening. Like when you go to Jin in, when they finally do the thing to get the Death Star plans, they don't know, right? They're like, let's hope someone's listening, right? We're sending it out in the hope, right? They're broadcasting at the end of the Gorman Massacre in the hope that someone's going to hear them, right? And some people do. Mon Mothma can see through it, and she knows what happens, and she gives the speech and rallies the rebels, right? So if you're like, people are getting killed with blasters, this show's dark and grim, it's like, I don't think it is. Yeah, like you said, Choco, it's a hopeful story at the end of it, even though things happen along the way. Like Nemec's manifesto still brings me to tears, right? Like this, it's so hopeful, even though, right? So like the sad things happen and tragic things happen and dark things happen. Like of course the Gorman Massacre episode was so hard to watch, but it is about hope. Rebellions are built on that, right? Rebellions aren't built on the massacres, they're built on the hope that you can stop it from happening again.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm excited to see and because I do feel like Andor as a show will affect Star Wars media going forward. And I pray it does, because it can only elevate it. Doesn't mean every show is going to be Andor, but when they see like the love and care that went into the writing of it, and how much people have enjoyed it, and the depth, and this is the content we want, well now they can lean into it. Now they can trust when a showrunner has a vision like this, to move forward with it. I think it'll only elevate Star Wars media going forward
if they
Yeah,
learn the
and
right
shows that,
lessons.
yeah, and I think the lesson is have something to say, right?
So
Because I think
yeah,
that's when it's the worst, is like, we just want to hear more about Kenobi. I'm like, okay, but
and
what do you have
that's
to
what the Tales of series
what do you have to
fails with, is
say?
it doesn't have
Yeah.
anything to say.
I think that some people are already maybe preemptively learning the wrong thing from Andor. People are saying this is the adult Star Wars, and it's like no. When we say adult, it's almost reductive to think that like it's blood, it's swearing, it's sex, it's gratuitous. It's Andor's biggest strength is not only the time and effort in production, but the intelligence of the project itself. I think in the intelligence, you can make a G-rated intelligent movie, you can make an R-rated intelligent movie, just like you can make a piece of crap that is meant for kids or adults. You can make a piece of crap, right? Andor's
Yeah.
biggest strength is its heart and its brain. And I think that is the most important thing. And as long as time and effort is spent facilitating that heart and that brain, you will make a good project. And that's the lesson to be learned from Andor, production wise. I think.
Not not make Tony Gilroy the CEO of Star Wars?
Exactly. And
people are like, make Sam Witwer the CEO, president of Lucasfilm. And you're like, he's a voice actor. What?
Yeah, I think that people view a CEO or a president or whatever as the be all end all. And it's like, no. A good thing about Tony Gilroy is that knowing that he doesn't know Star Wars like the people around him, and then he'll bring in, right? Like he has people underneath him that know lore stuff that can throw those in, and he is focused on the story and the themes and the emotions and whatnot. I think that's great. I think figuring out who you are in the rebellion, your purpose in the rebellion towards a bigger, broader, more hopeful future is the most important part. You figure out who you are and you fight from that perspective. I'm drawing analogies everywhere, but you get what I'm saying, right? Like, yeah. A production is a sum of its parts in any way, shape, or form. So,
Absolutely.
Thank you guys for being a part of this production.
Yep.
You're welcome.
Thank you for inviting me.
Before we get go, Choco, were you gonna say something?
Oh, I was gonna do my outro.
Yeah. Where can we find you? What do you got coming up? Anything you want to plug?
Yeah, I'm Darth Choco. On YouTube, Darth Choco on TikTok. That's where I primarily do Star Wars content. You can catch the Diet and the Force podcast Fridays at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And I am the next thing I'm gonna do is watch Apothecary Diaries with my wife. So gotta hop out.
All right, sounds good.
Great show, by the way, if you're not watching it.
Sara, as a wonderful co-host that you are, where can people find you? What do you got coming up? Anything you want?
You can find me at Ms_Marauder on Instagram and TikTok. We are taking like a break finally, a little bit, and then we're gonna start building for Anime Expo and San Diego Comic-Con. So we just finished our Skeleton Crew cosplays. So we got some good pictures of those and some nice videos, and then and then we're starting on Anime Expo. We're gonna do some Delicious in Dungeon for that, and we've got an Agatha All Along cosplay coming, hopefully for San Diego Comic-Con.
Awesome. If anyone wants to follow me personally, you can follow me at This Is Dimithri on Instagram. That's probably the easiest way. But if you want to follow the Keeg as a whole, the Andor Aftershow is one of the many shows that we do with the Keeg. But the Keeg as a whole, you can find us on TikTok and Instagram at The Keeg Show. We're also on Threads and Blue Sky and all that stuff at The Keeg Show / The Keeg Show, wherever you can find The Keeg. The Andor After Show, we will have one more episode going over episodes 10 to 12, and that'll be next week, Saturday, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. But we also do other shows under The Keeg, like Comic Talk and whatnot. So, whatever you're interested in, check us out online. See what else we got going on. If you're watching us live, it was on twitch.tv / The Keeg Show, or I guess more importantly, what we're trying to push is our YouTube channel, youtube.com / The Keeg Show, or you're listening to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, SoundCloud. We're on all those platforms. So however you are digesting us, whether it's watching the live stream or listening to the podcast, let us know you're out there. Like, comment, subscribe, follow, write a review. It'd be very helpful if you guys wrote podcast reviews. Pick one, Spotify, whatever your platform of choice is. Give us 5 stars or full stars or whatever the full amount is. Would be very helpful. That's pretty much it. Support your local comic shops. There's Star Wars comics at your local comic shop. Go to comicshoplocator.com, find a comic shop near you. There's also Star Wars books that I am going to have to dive in. So thanks a lot, Choco.
Read a Star Wars comic and find out who Poe Dameron's actual parents are.
Yeah, do your thing. But
Charbay and Kes Dameron are amazing characters, and Charbay is Bay. I don't know if you've seen her. Spectacular.
Okay. There's a lot of bays. There's a lot of bays in Star Wars, and I am not complaining. Anyway, thank you guys so much for coming on. Thank you everybody out there for watching. Once again, I am your host, Dimithri Perera, with
your co-host, Sara Zitney.
And this has been another episode of the Andor After Show for season 2, episodes 7 to 9. See you guys next week for one final episode. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Get ready, get